All right. So team building. All right. So real quick, I know you already talked to me about, in your DMs, like what you kind of want to work on and everything, but just tell me a little bit about like, your experience, how long you've been playing, have you been playing like multiple gens, and kind of what you think you want to work on the most.
Okay, so for draft specifically,
Yeah.
I've been playing for like 2, 3 years now.
Hmm.
Started off just doing like leagues with friends for fun, and then
Yeah.
I transitioned over to the Smogon draft tours,
Yeah.
and I've recently been joining actual leagues now.
Hmm.
So that's kind of my experience, and I've been playing competitive mons for like 5, 6 years at this point.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in terms of what I want to work on,
Hmm.
I feel like it's mainly just sort of being able to conceptualize what my opponent can bring and how
Hmm.
to prepare for that.
Yep.
Because I feel like I'm able to sort of visualize like the start of a game and
Hmm.
like the lead matchup scenarios and all that.
Yeah, that's
But
good. Yeah.
when it comes to how the game will play out later on, I feel like I kind of struggle with that and how I need to build in order to account for a threat later into the game.
Okay.
Does that
Yeah.
kind of make sense to you?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. So, yeah, it seems like so going into the game, like you probably have like a pretty like a good build, but I think when we talk about battling, or when you're battling a whole separate like day, I think as the game goes on, like the opponent usually kind of like plays in a certain way that like their win con is kind of noticeable, like after you get a lot of practice, and it's kind of like you having to have to guard against what their win condition is. The problem is like if you don't see that win condition, like you said, like in the builder, like you might not have a way to, you know, play against it. So when we build for your game, like later at the end, we'll kind of talk about what they could possibly bring. I didn't really look at the matchup yet that you sent me. I just kind of put it on the screen, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna kind of just go over like some steps I think you should do in team building to kind of cover all things. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over a matchup. So these are two Scarlet and Violet matchups. But we're going to go over two matchups that one I think is very favorable and one is like very unfavorable. And I'm going to kind of go over what I think you should look for in these types of matchups. And then one of the games was actually my game, so I could show you the pace and kind of like what I was thinking of when building it, and the other one was not a game that I played. So, but we could just go over kind of concepts, and then you can kind of go over ideas that you think would be good to bring in that matchup, and I'll kind of just like help you out and kind of say my ideas too, and then we'll go into like your actual game, and we'll try to have a good team going into that. If that makes sense.
All right, sounds good.
All right, cool. So I think the first thing you should do when looking at a matchup is looking at or trying to identify weaknesses on your opponent's team. Don't even worry about your team. Don't even worry about putting Pokemon on the builder. Just look at your opponent's team and kind of see if you can spot out weaknesses. Some people are really good at this. Like they can see major weaknesses within like 1 to 2 minutes. Some people it takes longer. It's not really a bad thing. But like when you practice for a while, you'll get better at it. You'll be able to spot things quicker. So some weaknesses that you might see is maybe like their hazard control is not very good. Like they can't remove hazards very good, or they can't set. They don't have a lot of hazard setters, or like maybe their speed options are not great. They have big speed gaps, or maybe they have like very strong physical attackers, but not really much special attackers. It's just like little things like that I think again once you kind of focus on it for a little bit, it'll help you team build and kind of attack those weaknesses. A major one too is like again it's Gen 9, so assuming there's Terra Captains, a lot of teams they don't really have a good resistance to a specific type. So a lot of the times people will make their Terra Captain that type to kind of just spam Terra Blast over and over. I think that's a very common thing, especially in 8mon. I know. Do you really play 8mon much? I know in the Smogon tours you do, but I don't know. Have you played like other things or mainly just Smogon tours for 8mon, and then like leagues is like 11 Pokemon that you play in?
Yeah, league's usually like 9 to 11, and then
Yeah.
Smogon is where I play all the 8 mons.
Okay. Yeah. So these the examples that I have are 8mon examples, but um, they also work for 9 to 11 mons too. So these are the two matchups here. Again, we're going to be on the blue side for both of these. One of these has a really good matchup, and one of these has a really really bad matchup. So I want you to just take like a minute or two and just kind of see if you can tell which one's the good one, which one's the bad one, and then after you're done, you can just let me know, and then we'll kind of talk about each one and why you think those are favorable or not favorable. I do think it might take a couple minutes, but I think there are key things for both of these matchups here that pretty easily signify if it's a good or a bad matchup. So, and the reason why I think it's important to kind of try to identify right away if it's a good matchup or a bad matchup is there are certain things you can do when team building that you can't do for, let's say, a good matchup that you can do for a bad matchup or vice versa. So I think if you're able to identify if the matchup is good or bad early in the team building process, I think that'll help you kind of structure your team and things like that. So but yeah, just take a minute and let me know when you think you have the answer.
All right. Okay, so just kind of going off the first one, I feel like some of the major things I notice is Sandy Shocks looks pretty good. The first matchup.
Yep.
They kind of have to rely on like Mesprit in order to answer it, or like Shokaberry or AV Hands in order to check it. So I think that's might be a problem for them.
Yep.
And then on top of that, Mesprit is also kind of tasked with dealing with maybe an Iron Valiant or Talonflame, depending on how the game goes. Like obviously there is Scizor for the Valiant and the Dragalge as well. But I feel like at least with Scizor, it doesn't really want to switch into close combat, so you might use Dragalge or Mesprit to switch into that.
Yep, agree.
And I guess in terms of how our side matches up into theirs, Enamor's looks pretty good into them.
Yep.
It's, the only problem I see with it is like Booster Valiant being able to revenge kill, or even like a Scarf Golden Go if we're specs, or like not scarfed.
Yep.
And yeah, I feel like their team might have some problems though breaking through us, because Ogerpon kind of struggles into Scizor and Dragalge, and of course Greninja could also be Scarf.
Yep.
So that's kind of what I noticed about that one.
Okay, so so overall though, do you think that one's favorable or not favorable?
I think kind of reevaluating it now, I think it is mostly favorable, because a lot of their kind of threats are able to be checked by our team, right? And we have pretty good breakers into theirs.
Okay.
With Enamorous, and Greninja might be able to, get off a Battle Bond sweep as well in the end game. So
okay, that's fair. All right, what about the other one?
Okay, so for the other one, Excadrill I think looks pretty good into them.
Yep.
Obviously there's the Landorus, right? But you could probably tech like a Balloon, or obviously just your Terra, right?
Yep, that's very good. Yep.
And then they're also, I feel like they're kind of weak to Valiant as well. Slightly, because like Sword Stance Valiant, for example, you could run like a Knock or something. I mean, they could be Colbert Cloaking, right? But you also have Tyranitar, which their only dark resists are all Creamy and Mienshao, so you could be like Choice Band or something on that, because you don't necessarily need to check much defensively.
Right. Yeah, I do think Physical Valiant is the better bring here in this matchup. For sure.
Yeah, I agree, because otherwise Cloaking can stuff out special pretty easily.
Yeah.
But the major problems I noticed with this matchup is Baxcalibur and Ogerpon, because our side doesn't really have any Ogerpon switch-ins apart from like Sinistra and Toxapex.
Yep.
But even then, like the Sinistra, for example, you could probably kill it off with Baxcalibur or Duraludon, right? And well, it can Terra in order to avoid that. If you Terra the Sinistra, that means that Excadrill can't Terra to like potentially beat like Landorus or something, right?
Yeah.
And also Ogerpon starts to threaten you a lot more, because you don't have that water resist. Because Toxapex probably isn't good into Ogerpon, right? You could like taunt or Sword Stance with Zen Headbutt and stuff like that. So I think overall it's slightly unfavorable for us just because of their threats and how they can kind of break through us.
Okay, so you're going with favorable on the left, unfavorable on the right.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, after I go through the steps and everything, we're gonna look at how these two teams are like more in depth, and then we'll see kind of how our thoughts either agree or disagree.
Okay.
So, but yeah, everything you said though like made a lot of sense. So you definitely like have good, good knowledge of the game already. I know some people like they just haven't really played much at all and they wouldn't really be able to tell, but you know what you're talking about. I can already tell. So, and actually, I think I saw you. Oh my God, who did you beat for the Gen 7 game recently? You played a good player, I think. You beat him.
Hunter Z Infected
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
Melcatter. Those are the people I played.
Yeah, Hunter. Hunter's a really good player. So the fact that you beat him was really good. The regular Venusaur putting in overtime was kind of crazy, but
Yeah.
but anyways, okay. So after you kind of identify the weaknesses, next thing, obviously this only is for SV, is take note of the Terra captains and potential Terra types, because so SV is such a fast-paced meta compared to the other gens. Gen 7 isn't like too, like, it's kind of fast-paced too with Z moves, but definitely not as much as SV. And the Terra typing can completely like just change the game. So you have to be aware. Obviously, you can't just know which Terra captain they're going to bring, but there are certainly a couple of them that stick out that they should bring. And that's something you have to take note of. You have to be able to guard against it. I think when looking at Terra types, there's some things you can look at, such as, again, maybe weaknesses on your side if you don't have a specific resistance to a certain type, or maybe, like for example, if you have like a toxic spiker right on your side and they don't have a grounded poison or great removal, maybe they'll make their Terra type poison so they don't just get owned by toxic spikes, like little things like that. So I definitely think that's something you should do, again, before you even put a Pokemon on the builder. Like, this is stuff you're doing just looking at the matchup, not really making your sets or anything yet, right? And then this is kind of where you start maybe doing your first Pokemon, is after you've kind of looked at weaknesses and potential Terra types. I think you need to kind of establish a win condition. Okay, I think going into every single battle you need a win condition, and it's kind of like something you need to play for every turn throughout the battle. If you don't have a win condition, you're kind of just putting a bunch of sets together and hoping that like you outlast the opponent. But I think having a win condition makes the games a lot easier. And 90% of the time I'd say it'd probably be like a specific Pokemon, either like a setup sweeper or like a choice scarf cleaner to win the game or something. But it could also be like getting hazards on the field or something. Like, let's say you have a bulky team or whatever and they don't have great removal. Maybe just getting all your hazards up and dealing with their one remover, and then just kind of having your opponent like outlast your opponent by them switching around and taking a bunch of stuff. But usually your win condition is going to be a Pokemon, and you can have more than one win condition too, because I don't think what you should do is have a team built and basically rely on that one win condition, because if that one win condition dies or something goes wrong, they bring something you don't expect, whatever, like your team shouldn't just fold over. But I do think having a strong team to support your win condition, if you prep right and you play to your condition, like I think it's a very strong way to kind of win battles, if that like makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. All right, so like I just said, yeah, I think when you have that win condition, you want to structure your other Pokemon to support it. So like, let's say your win condition is like a setup Dragonite or something, right? D Dragonite. Maybe something you can do to support it is have screens, or maybe there's a Pokemon on the opponent's side of the field that you can't OHKO at +1 after a Dragon Dance. You want to have your team kind of be able to damage that Pokemon in any way, shape, or form. So let's say it's like an Avalugg, for example, right? They have an Avalugg, and you can't OHKO it, obviously, even at +1 because of Sturdy or whatever, and it's their remover. So maybe you'll attack on a Rocky Helmet Pokemon, right? So when they go for spin, you break their Sturdy, and which in the long term helps your Dragonite setup. Obviously, Dragonite's not going to do a ton to Avalugg anyway, so it'd probably pack like Flamethrower or something to be mixed to do a lot. But it's just like things like that, kind of. Or let's say you have like a Choice Banded Sneasler, for example, to just break through your team as your win condition. Excuse me. Oh, I need water.
No worries, no worries.
Right, so let's say you have a Bandit Sneasler and you want to just break through your opponent's team as much as possible with it, you would want to maybe have like 2 to 3 Pokemon on your team that has momentum, like U-Turn Volt Switch, to kind of get into your breaker as much as possible, right? So just supporting whatever your win condition is, I think, is very key to making the battle kind of go your way. Okay. Then this is like one of the things I think that maybe you might struggle with a bit is guarding against your Pokemon's biggest threats. So I think when you look at opponent's team, you can tell probably their biggest like offensive threats. It's usually like their 1 to 3 Pokemon that they draft, like their hardest hitters. They can draft a lower tier Pokemon too that breaks well, but when I say guard against the biggest threat, sometimes like I don't know, let's say they have like an Iron Bundle, and you just don't have a switch into um, like a Specs Freeze Dry or Specs Ice Beam, right? For example. So you want to be able to at least try to make a check out of a Pokemon, so you don't just pick one every time to it. But sometimes you just physically can't with the team you have. So another example of being able to guard against it is just having something that can come in after it kills something to either kill it or scare it out. And then maybe you can set hazards against it and chip it down that way. But you want to think of ways that your opponent might be able to just kind of go blast through your team, and you want to think of ways to kind of guard against it. Maybe they have like a set up Dragonite themselves, right? Like a very easy Pokemon that can just set up and kind of just blow through your team. Well, then maybe you'd pack on like a red card, or like if you don't have like a sturdy Pokemon and it could just kill your red card Pokemon, you might have to have like Endure red card just to kind of scare it out, and or not like force it out, right? So you at least have that one opportunity that if you don't position correctly and they get up the setup, you can still survive the game, and then try to win then, and kind of basically limit their opportunities to getting that threat in, right? So it's definitely harder, like when you're first like trying to like guard against things, and like if you don't do mock battles or anything either, like there's definitely things that you can just miss. I don't know, do you do mocks for like your leagues and stuff, or not really?
Yeah, I usually do a
You
couple mocks.
you do mocks, okay. So yeah, so especially in those mocks, if you see like a set of Pokemon kind of just run through your team, you can come up with ways to guard against it, while also like you don't want to make your team like too defensive, especially in SV and an offensive meta. But I do think you need to have at least one thing to kind of just prevent their best Pokemon from just kind of destroying you. Unless you want to just go like a full out like hyper offense team. When you draft like teams, do you have like a certain playstyle you like to draft, like balanced or like bulky offense or hyper offense? Like, do you have a preferred playstyle or not really?
I usually go more bulky offense, but I don't specifically look to draft a certain style. It's just kind of how I draft in general.
Yeah,
Do you
just
know
like
what I mean?
yeah, like just certain mons like you like that kind of fit probably bulky offense stuff like that. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm definitely more of like a balanced player, but of course with this meta, like you can't run balanced or even like kind of stall. You have to be more offensive, which it's fine. I think this is probably my best gen actually, but um, so I adapted pretty well. But it just depends on you kind of have to just work with the tools you have. Like there's no matchup that is gonna be like, oh my god, you just can't do anything about it. Like it's just don't even play it, just FF. Like there's definitely matchups that are very dire. I think one of the two matchups that I showed you in the beginning was it's really hard, and there's for a couple of reasons. I don't think you saw them right away, but that's fine. We'll go over it. But you just have to really like look for all potential like outs for yourself, and then for guarding against their best Pokemon too. So. So this is a big one. I think a lot of people might actually disagree with this one, but this is something that I do, and I think it actually helps. So don't assume information unless necessary. So I would say like 95% of the time, you should not assume information in the builder. Like if you think, oh, this Pokemon sucks, like there's no way it's coming, or this Pokemon's going to be scarfed because it's so good against me and it can revenge a lot of my things. Assuming stuff is really bad, because obviously if they bring like a non-scarfed of that Pokemon set, whatever it is, that can just kind of throw off your whole game plan. Or if they bring a Pokemon that you just assume, oh, it's definitely not coming, and then it comes, it can stop one of your win conditions, or kind of just mess with your whole game plan. Like that's just something that could put you in the back just from them bringing it at the start of the game, which is something you don't want. Like you want, if something's going to put you in the back, it's going to probably be something they bring that you just kind of didn't think of, not that you assumed didn't come, like wouldn't come, you know. But I do think there is a time that you should, not only can you assume stuff, but I think you should assume information, and that is when you're playing the quote unquote like unwinnable matchup, or like the 90-10 or 85-15 matchup. Because I think there's some things that you can do to kind of make that percentage more like even, like maybe if it's like 90-10 at initial glance, like you can make it maybe like 70-30 by assuming things. You can kind of give yourself a little bit of an advantage, because guess what, if you assume something in a 90-10 matchup and you're wrong, the matchup's already bad anyway. You get what I'm saying? Like, so it's not going to be a major drawback to you. Whereas if you assume something and you get it correctly, you can go into the game kind of having a build, like not having to worry about that specific thing, and that gives you a little bit of an advantage. Does that like make sense to you, or not really?
I think that makes sense, right? Because what you're kind of saying is if you in those like horrible matchups, right? If you can assume what they have, then you could kind of take the game to your hands,
Yeah.
and you're able to execute your kind of plan, and
Hmm.
maybe that'll kind of help you out in a matchup that would otherwise be really hard to win.
Yeah, and it gives you like less things to worry about too in building in a bad matchup. If you're just assuming like something is going to come or something is not going to come, then you don't even got to worry about that in the builder. And if you get it right, then that's like a little bit of an advantage. If you get it wrong, again, the matchup's already so bad, it's not gonna be like, oh my god, you assume something, it's not coming, like you lost, like you can't win, like you're gonna have a hard time winning anyway. So you might as well try to give yourself a little bit of an edge before the battle like even starts. So those are things that I think you should kind of work on while building, and then these next couple things are going to be things after you have your kind of build made, um, that you should be doing. So properly EVing your Pokemon. So you've been playing for years, so you probably know majority like how to EV your Pokemon, but we're going to go over a quick example, which is a pretty common rule that a lot of people know. So looking at this spread right here, this is Gouging Fire. And do you see anything that kind of sticks out that shouldn't be there, really?
Yeah, it should be adamant just because you're wasting EVs.
Yeah. Okay, so that's like kind of the golden rule, is to always have your nature to be boosting whatever your highest stat is, because you can see we get 5 more HP stats, HP on the right, and everything else is the same. But so a lot of people too in leagues, like they'll kind of like run like 252 sets. Like maybe people will kind of just like do their one speed, like they'll do the speed to speed creep whatever they have to next, and then they'll just throw max attack and then the rest in HP or whatever. Or even just like if it's a defensive Pokemon, they'll just do like 252 bold or whatever, or impish. And you could probably get away with that in just like casual leagues, like I think you're playing in, like you played in Calo and WPF or something like that, you said.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so leagues like that where it's not like crazy competitive, like you can probably just get away with doing that. But once you start getting into like competitive team tours, or like you get further in like the Smogon tournaments, and you start playing like good players, like really good players, I think EVing your Pokemon to like properly take maybe 2 of a certain hit, or not needing max attack to like KO everything you need to KO at +1, or 2-shot everything. Like you need to like look at specific calcs. I think a lot of the times in the games, they actually matter. You might not think they matter. Like if you have, let's say you have 252 attack, your speed, and then like 100 HP, compared to if you have like 220 attack and then like 100 HP and 30 in defense or something. Like that difference, like in the attack, the 30 less, it's probably not going to make a big difference. But the EVs in defense could make a big difference, especially if you have a Pokemon like, let's say, Iron Valiant doesn't have great SpDef. So like, let's say you have that 30 in SpDef for Valiant, that changes a lot of rules, because its SpDef is so low, and it can make a big difference. So I don't think, if you want to practice, like you should be doing this for all your games. But like I said, you can get away with kind of just being lazy with your EVs and leagues. But I do think once you start playing like better players, you want to practice as much, putting EVs like where you can, and not just putting max in HP or attack or whatever, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
also with like let's say you drop like 30 attack or whatever,
Hmm.
a lot of times in the game, right? Mons take like stealth rock chip or
Yeah.
U-turn or
Yep.
small knockoff here, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of times the attack investments I feel like don't like they matter, but you can get away with dropping a bit of attack. But it's the defensive ones that are really important, especially because if you preserve Amon for like later in the game, right? Then you know for sure that your um, I don't know, whatever, like your Gloking can take on a +2 Valiant
Hmm.
Swords Dance, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So definitely try to work on EVing your Pokemon if you're not already. You might be, but all right. So I actually messed up here, but
Usually.
that's okay. So number 8 was actually going to be uh think of your lead Pokemon, right? So I think you said you did this, you already do this, but yeah, having like a dedicated lead is something that I think you should be doing before going into the game because know how you can kind of know how the game's going to go at the start. It helps you kind of think of sequences too, which we'll talk about sequences when we talk about battling more, but basically if you have like if it's an Amon and you have like a lead Uxie or something and then their opponent has like a Pokemon, you should know what you're clicking right away versus all 8 of their Pokemon. I don't know how you are with timer too. Like if you're someone that takes a while with timer or not really. Um,
Usually in like the mid to end game.
you
Usually
do?
pretty quick, like the first few turns.
Okay. Yeah. So if you were someone that do take a while, then this is extra important. But yeah, having a dedicated lead and knowing like what to go into versus every single lead on their end, it definitely helps kind of think of like your game plan before the game even starts. I think if you kind of don't know what you're going to lead and you're just waiting to see kind of what they bring, it could get a little tricky because if they just like lead something that you just don't know what to do like, after you see it turn one, like you might end up like going into something that you didn't think would take damage right away, or whatever. I think having plans of like what could potentially happen in the first few turns before the game actually happens will definitely help you, you know, kind of have control of the game early, and playing again to your win count. I think is what is most important. So, and then considering their possible win cons, this is a big one. I, it's so throughout the game, again, this is all in the builder, this isn't in the game yet, but throughout the game, when you're battling, like I said earlier on, like their playstyle and what they do should kind of notify to you like what their win condition is. So if you can kind of decide what you think their win condition is going to be before the game even starts, it'll be easier to you to kind of guard against it and not let that win condition kind of win the game. Um, Certain win conditions might change throughout the game for you and for their opponent based on like some sets that maybe you didn't think would happen, or crits happen, hacks happen. Like you can't control that kind of stuff. So I think you need to keep that in mind, what you think their win condition is going to be, so then you can either do your best to like not let that Pokemon in at a like opportune time for them, or maybe you can just try to get your win condition in earlier than theirs, and kind of just not give them their opportunity to win the game, if that makes sense. Is that something you do, is kind of consider their win condition, or you don't really do that?
Yeah, I do. It's usually I kind of look at their team, right, and I see if there's like a bond that can kind of, beat me in the end game, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can or
Mm-hmm.
like break my team, right? So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
usually I have some kind of plan for them,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's like, an offensive mon to revenge kill or just keeping them on in the back
Right.
for the late game if they're like a sweeper and I need to stop them, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think that's. I mean, all these points are important, but I think that's probably one of the more important things is kind of considering their best Pokemon into you, and, and then obviously you want to support your best Pokemon. So, well, there's number 8. So let's talk about. So this was the matchup that you said was favorable. Um,
yeah.
okay, I think it's actually the opposite, and
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you why. It's not a big deal, whatever. So the first thing, and you when you started talking about this matchup, you were hitting like the main points that I was gonna talk about. So that was good. But the first thing right away is fairy move spam from Valiant. There's only one resist, right? It's Scizor. And Scizor 1 just not have great Spit F. So Specs Moonblast, I think in this matchup, like it would make sense for them to be either like Pixie Plate or Specs. Um, Specs Moonblast is gonna hurt. Like Scizor can probably switch into that like one time, and the next time it'll get 2-shot. And you can definitely EV Valiant to live a Bullet Punch as well. So you are gonna be probably have to force for Mesprit, like you said, to be able to come into Valiant at least once and use that for that. And Scizor doesn't really count either because Valiant can easily just go for an Aura Sphere or something, and that will do way over half to Scizor if they expect Scizor to come in. So I do think you're kind of required to use Mesprit for Valiant, and then Scizor could probably take one hit or two. So I think they have the best offensive Pokemon in the matchup, and it outspeeds everything besides Greninja, which Valiant, guess what, can run Vacuum Wave too. So unless Greninja is running Water Shuriken, you know, a boosted Vacuum Wave at Specs or whatever, will probably Oko Greninja or do a good chunk to it, you know? So it's not only the best offensive Pokemon, but it can also do a lot of damage back to what Greninja is probably like the strongest offensive Pokemon on the blue side, I would say. Greninja or Amorous is probably Greninja though. So Iron Valley is just insanely just really good in this matchup. Next thing is Golden Go. Its versatility. So when I say versatility, is it can run. I think there's 4 sets. I think that are all troubling for the blue side that it could run here. The first 2 are just Scarf or Specs. If you look, there's one Ghost Resist. It's Greninja, so it doesn't really count. And it's going to run Dazzling Gleam in this matchup, Golden Go. So it'll hit Greninja harder, and it'll hit Iron Hands a bit harder too. So if it's Scarf or Specs, you're going to think it's going to be, okay, Shadow Ball, Dazzling Gleam. Could be Make It Rain just to hit Enamorous before Terra, even though you're probably going to assume Enamorous is going to Terra. Maybe if it Terras into a Fairy type, though, you want Make It Rain to just nuke it. And then probably Trick. That's probably the set if it's Scarf or Specs. And then the other 2 items, I think, are Resist Berries. I think Colbur Berry and Shuka Berry also make a lot of sense. Colbur Berry, it could take a Greninja Dark Pulse and then just Thunder Wave it or something, right? Or just kill it with Dazzling Gleam. And then Shuka Berry would work for like Enamorous. If it's Earth Power, it could work for Earthquake from Iron Hands, you know? So I think it's very hard to tell what Golden Go is going to come here, yet all of those sets that I just named, I think, are very good. Are very good into that team, right? Do you see that, or?
Yeah, I can see it. Because you also can't exactly prep for each one specifically.
No, this game is going to be way too like fast paced too, to kind of try to take into account all the sets that it could possibly be, especially with this next thing, which I think is the biggest thing in this matchup, is the hazard control. So Samurott is probably the best spiker, I would say, in SV, just because of that Ceaseless Edge move. And then Sandy Shocks can set spikes, Ogerpon can set spikes. I mean, I guess Glimmet can set spikes too, but realistically, they're bringing their top 6, right? If you look at the blue side, what's their hazard remover?
Scizor.
Right, it's only Scizor. And guess what? They have a Golden Go as well. To just block the defog, they have a Scizor counter in Talonflame. So the team on the red side, they can prep their team knowing they're going to be able to get all the spikes up and keep the spikes up, right? There's just nothing the blue team can do to stop it. Ceaseless Edge is very spammable click, and again, if you bring in Scizor to try and defog, maybe you can defog once or twice if for some reason they don't bring in Golden Go. But then guess what? You're losing your only one quote-unquote fairy resist, and Scizor is just going to get chipped. It doesn't have Roost on anymore, obviously. It doesn't have reliable recovery. So it's just not a plausible strategy to try and remove the spikes and rocks with Scizor. Like, it's just not going to happen. So, and again, they can literally just not let you do it with Golden Go. So they have the heavy hazard control in their favor, which makes things like switching into Golden Go Valiant or even Ogerpon Sandy Shocks, like you said, just even more harder, right? So there is one thing though that actually I'll talk about the last step and then we'll go into kind of what I thought about going into. So this was my game too, by the way. I was on the blue side. This was for DPL. You know what DPL is or no?
Yeah, it's a team 4, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the last thing too is speed control. It just heavily favors the opponent too. One, I guess Talonflame naturally. If you're just looking at base speed tiers, Talonflame is the fastest Pokemon. Valiant outspeeds everything besides Greninja, and again, it has that priority for Greninja. The blue team does have that priority in Scizor to kind of get it hit off before it, but if it's like a Specs Vacuum Wave 2, it'll go before Bullet Punch, and it'll still do it a good chunk to Scizor. So, and then here's another thing too. So I was looking at like a Trailblazing Battle Bond Greninja set, you know. I think that's because Greninja is its offense looks pretty good here. I think you do need 4 attacks though, which is the only problem. Like if you run like Dark Pulse for Golden Go, Water Move for Shocks, Talonflame, Grass Move for Samurott, and then Poison Move like Sludgewave for Ogerpon Valiant. Like it can hit the whole team super effectively with 4 attacks, but then you can't run things like Shuriken or you can't run things like Trailblaze. So what I was like looking for was I had a Trailblaze set as the Grass Move to hit Samurott, like I was physical, right? And I was like, okay, if I can kill something with Trailblaze, like either Sandy Shocks or Samurott or something, and get the Battle Bomb boost, like it's looking pretty good for Greninja, right? Like there's not a whole ton that they can do. But Ogerpon, so if you get a Trailblaze like speed boost and then the Battle Bomb boost, right? You go to +2 with Greninja. But the way the multipliers work is if Ogerpon Terras, and it's going to Terra, right? Like they're not bringing Glimmet here. Well, I didn't think they were at least. If they bring a Scarfed Terra Ogerpon, it's not multiplied by 2 is their speed. It's actually multiplied by 2.25. So that Pokemon will outspeed a Trailblazed Battle Bond Greninja. I don't know if you knew that, how multipliers work.
Yeah, yeah, I knew.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I was one of the people that I did not know. So the only way for Greninja to outpace that kind of set is if Greninja was Scarfed itself. And like I said, Greninja does have like coverage to hit everything, but it can't like lock into a move. Like the only way it would be able to like really do its thing is if it's like towards the end of the game where like there is one move that could potentially clean, but I don't think that was right. Like I don't think that was a good strategy going into this thing. So they have the speed control, they have the hazard control, they just have the better breakers, really. And Amorous does look good, I will say on the blue side, but because of that Talonflame, I think Enamorous is kind of forced into a Terra type that can hit the Talonflame for a lot of damage, because it doesn't have naturally coverage to hit Talonflame if it doesn't Terra. Like it can hit it with a Sludge Bomb. I think is probably its hardest hitting. Its hardest hitting attack if it doesn't Terra into like an Electric type or something. So I do bring both my Terra Captains here, and I'm gonna kind of go over what I was thinking when I was like trying to build for this insane matchup. Like, and I even talked to the other team like after, and they were saying that the opponent was like winning all of their mocks, like it wasn't even close. And when I first started mocking, I lost like my first 10 mocks or something crazy like that. So it was a struggle. It was a struggle trying to figure out how to take on this team. But what I ended up doing was, so like I said, I just have to assume. So I'm gonna assume things here because again, I think this matchup is not good. So one of the things I think that's fair to assume is I'm gonna be playing with hazards on my side of the field majority of the game, right? Like there's nothing I can do about it. All they have to do is get in Samurott or Sandy Shocks, click a spike, and just block my defog if I even want to defog with Golden Go. So that is one of the assumptions where like I am building my team as if I am going to have hazards on my team. Again, you don't want to assume things if it's like an even matchup or anything, but in this type of matchup, I think it's fair to assume that type of things. So also, if he's going into the game knowing that he's going to have spikes on my side of the field, his only remover is, he's got 2 actually. He's got Komala to Rapid Spin. Again, it's probably not going to come, but it can come. And Talonflame is defog. But if Talonflame comes to the game, which I anticipate it will, another thing I assumed was it's not going to run defog, right? Like that doesn't make sense. If he's easily able to get up the hazards and keep him up, why would he have defog on Talonflame, right?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
right. So going into building for my side of the field, I'm like, all right, if he's gonna have hazards on my side of the field and not want to remove them, what's something that I can try to do to kind of, make it even, is it sucks because I'm gonna be using probably my best offensive Pokemon, Greninja, as kind of just a sash lead to get up spikes too. I want to try to make this game as like even as possible, and Spikes is actually pretty good into his team too. His top 6, only Talonflame avoids them, and I don't think he's gonna have removal on his team. I don't think he's gonna expect my best Pokemon to kind of just try to get up hazards right away, but that's what I'm gonna do. And another thing that you can do versus hazard spam is if you don't have a good remover or you can't remove, like in this matchup, is run what I think is probably it's definitely the best item. I think in Gen 8. It might be the second best now in Gen 9. I think it still probably is the best, but some people say I think Choice Scarf is the best item. But it's heavy duty boots, just heavy duty boot spam. So basically, all those spikes and rocks that he gets up is just, it doesn't mean anything to me, right? So I'm going to be running boots on majority of the Pokemon, and then the Pokemon that don't get affected by spikes, like Mesprit or like a lead Greninja, that's just going to be Sash. Doesn't need to have boots, but everything else will probably have heavy duty boots. So I think that's that's something that I think was a good strategy going in. And then also I think in these types of matchups where like it's not good for you, you might want to look into like your lower tier Pokemon. So like my two lower tier Pokemon are Rhydon and Volbeat. Um, do you, if looking at those two guys real quick and then looking at his team, do you think either one of those two guys are bringable or not really?
I'd say that Rhydon's pretty bringable, right? You have counters Talonflame. You
Mm-hmm.
could bring like some kind of Terra because that's Lightning Rod.
Yep.
I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yep.
you could
Yep.
Terra to beat Sandy Shocks,
Yes. Yep.
and you know
That's
it's just good in general. I feel
yeah. That's
like
exactly what I was thinking.
flying,
Yeah.
like something like flying maybe,
Yep.
or even something for Val.
Yep. You didn't did you see this game or no? Like the replay?
No, 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 I
Okay,
haven't.
okay, okay. Well, yeah, you literally just hit the nail. Like you just like terrifying Rhydon was like, yeah, like that is technically a hard counter to Sandy Shocks unless they bring like Power Gem or something to break the to hit the flying type, or if I'm like Balloon or something, which I am, to break the Balloon, because obviously it's immune to electric with lightning rod. So yeah, I am gonna end up bringing Rhydon to this game. I think if you just look at its stabs plus a Terra Blast from flying. Like, look at his top six. It hits everything super effectively except for Samurott, but Earthquake is still going to do a lot of damage to it. So that is something that I'm going to bring. That I'm thinking maybe they probably saw maybe a few Rhydons in the mocks, but maybe they didn't see Terra Flying or maybe they didn't see Balloon or something. Because yeah, I can show you the replay too after we go over this. But in the game, there it seemed like my Rhydon hard walled the Sandy Shocks. Like they did not expect that from the Sandy Shocks. So every time I had the Rhydon in versus Sandy Shocks, I would basically either get my rocks up or get a free attack into something because he just could not do anything to me. So I do think maybe in like every single matchup you should kind of look at all 8 of your Pokemon or all 11 to kind of see if there is a kind of like a lower tier mon that kind of has a really sneaky good matchup. But especially in bad matchups, I think you have to like kind of, again, that's one of those things where you can kind of give yourself a good advantage because they're not gonna like really look into like you bring in lower tier Pokemon. Like people in leagues just like don't kind of they kind of just ignore, like not all the time, but they ignore like Pokemon that are like 2 points or 3 points and less. But I think there's some that are valuable and that you can bring in a good amount of matchups. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you my pace and kind of go through like what I was thinking of and like my whole like game plan going into the game. So oh god, so this is the pace. So, like I said, I want to get up the spikes. So I am going to lead with Greninja. And I want to get up minimum 2. I know people usually say, like, oh, you should only get 1 spike up, right? Or 3, not 2. But it depends on what they lead because my 2 win conditions are at the bottom. And if they lead, so they lead Sandy Shocks. And if they lead Sandy Shocks, you're going to think of your win con, like throughout the entire battle. And Scizor is one of the few things. I'm sorry. Well, Sandy Shocks is one of the few things that Scizor Bullet Punch / Quick Attack can't KO unless it's like chipped, right? At +2. So I want to get up the spikes, and then I turn into a ground type, right? So maybe even versus the Sandy Shocks lead, they Volt Switch, right? Versus a Greninja or something crazy. So I could get a free turn there. They don't do that in the game, but it's just a possibility. So my priority is just getting up spikes. If they lead something like a Samurott or something like Talonflame, for example, there's potential that I can get up all 3 spikes, which would be clutch. But more often than not, I assume I'm going to get 1 or 2 spikes up and then probably get a hit off on something just to chip it for one of my 2 win conditions at the bottom. The Rhydon, like you said, you pretty much nailed the set. It's Air Balloon and it's Terra Flying. So I didn't have a dedicated Pokemon that I was going to Terra. I think both had like opportunities to Terra. I did initially have like a Rock Polish instead of Stealth Rock on Rhydon, but the only problem is I need like all 3 Rock Polishes to outspeed like Terra Ogerpon because Rhydon is so damn slow. But it was a very good way to just sweep his team. Like if you just look at the 3 attacks and then I'm Rock Polish with like Expert Belt, like it just OHKOs everything on the team. And besides Samurai, it just takes a little bit of spikes. Oh.
Yeah, hold on one.
All right, so going back to this. Okay, so yeah, you pretty much called the Rhydon. Yeah, so, but if you just look, so I was considering, like I said, Rock Polish set. If it was just Expert Belt with these 3 attacks, like it literally OHKOs everything with Samurai. So that's another reason why I was like, okay, Spikes is just trying to get Spikes up because the Samurai's not going to run boots here. It can, but more than likely it's not. So just getting Spikes chip on Samurai is like huge for like getting just KOing something with Rhydon, or for the Scizor to win in the end game. Talonflame and Samurott were the 2 Pokemon really that were key to going down for Scizor to win. But Golden Go can still kind of take a knockoff too, especially if it is that Cold Rare set. But yeah, so basically the idea behind this is, one, prioritize rocks, because again I want to hazard stack myself in order for my 2 win conditions to have the easiest chance of, or the best chance of winning. And then basically whenever Sandy Shock comes in, I just throw this guy in front, and if he doesn't double, which guess what, if he doubles he's going to be taking spikes damage from on something. If he doesn't double, I get a free click after. So if he did tech Power Gem, it definitely would have made the game a lot harder. But I'm assuming in his mocks, like nobody probably brought the air balloon or just Terra Flying, which a little bit crazy to me, but I guess they didn't. So it worked out, in the end for me. Very good. So remember we were talking about Valiant. I kind of had to design this Mesprit to take Valiant on, and it wasn't going to be doing much. It's just basically a screen spot with Healing Wish and Knockoff. Citrus Berry does let me take a Specs Moonblast, which, like I said, I think that is the best set for them to bring because my resist is Scizor. So basically, Mesprit is there just to literally throw it in versus Valiant, and then hopefully I can get a screen off and then Healing Wish. But it doesn't even get to do that in the game you're gonna see. So, but I just needed something to throw in front of Valiant. That was basically it. And then this is where kind of my heavy duty boot spam comes in. Like I said, I'm assuming I'm going to be playing with Spikes up. Obviously, I don't need my lead Sash to be boots, and then Spikes doesn't affect these 2 guys. So, but Spikes does affect these 3, especially after an Emrys Terras into an electric type. So this handset was basically just to kind of switch in, and it's pretty bulky, it's max Spadef. It could take a hit from Goldengo, it can take a hit from Samurai if it goes for a Ceaseless Edge. It could basically take a hit from almost everything. I think maybe the only thing it can't take is like a Specs Moonblast from Valiant. It might even be able to take one from full, I don't know though. So this one is basically just to kind of throw in versus something and just, again, either do a lot of damage because my 4 attacks that I have hits the top 6 of his Pokemon. I mean, hits everything on the team really hard. So it's just to kind of throw in versus like a Samurott or a Golden Go, and either force it out and have something take spikes, or just do a lot of damage to that one Pokemon. Because again, getting big damage on Samurott or Golden Go is really good for either my two bottom win conditions here. So like I said, you should definitely have at least 1 win condition, but having 2 is even better, to be honest. So these are my 2. Again, I might not Terra Enamorous. It's really based off if I think I find a good opportunity to Terra with the Rhydon or not. But if I don't, it's just an agility 3 attacks Enamorous set. But it's pretty slow because it's agility. So I might have not gone with the same spread if I have to play this battle again, just because you pointed out, like, if the Sandy Shocks does have a move to break the balloon on Rhydon, Sandy Shocks is kind of a problem, especially if I need to use Mesprit for Valiant. And this spread, I'm modest with not like a ton of speed, could potentially mean that the Sandy Shocks is faster than me, which would be brutal, because then it could just one-shot me if it predicts me to not Terra and go for electric move, or do I do Terra and it goes for a ground move. It is a bit of a prediction, but he could get it right, and then I would just lose arguably my best Pokemon for nothing. So, but yeah, I just figured because I can Terra, I can set up in front of something like an Orgrimmon, not Terra, or set up in front of something like Goldengo if I do Terra into an electric type. Shadow Ball will still do a lot of damage, don't get me wrong, but it'll be able to tank one, and then Mystical Fire could do a good chunk. And then my other win condition is just the Scizor. Again, hopefully I can just get things chipped down with my spikes and then try to win with one of these two guys. I will say, again, because I'm assuming no defog from Talonflame. If they do have defog on Talonflame, then Scizor would never be able to win this game. Or if they just literally keep Talonflame alive, like they don't kind of play bad with it, you know? Scizor should never win a game when there's like a Talonflame or a Moltres or whatever, right? So I just have to kind of see how the game goes and then kind of decide which win condition is better for my team out of these two. So after like kind of going over some of the points, do you still think this matchup is more like favorable or not really?
Uh, I I still think I think now I see why it's unfavorable just because of how many options they have in team, and you can't exactly prep for everything, right? So as you said before, you kind of have to just assume that they'll, not run anything like, with the default Talonflame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like that is a pretty fair assumption,
Mm-hmm.
given like they could hazard stack versus you pretty easily, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, you still have to make those calls in order for you to win the game, right? Because as you said, your scissor set, for example, you wouldn't be able to win the game if they had defog talent or if they just kept it in the back, right? Because that's
Mm-hmm.
never going to be able to break through and kill.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So, I'm gonna. Um, okay. Yeah. Let's go over the replay real quick. I don't have it loaded. Let me just open up the doc, and I'll kind of show
Okay.
you what I was thinking throughout the game. Again, this is more like towards when we go over battling tool. We're gonna go over a bunch of replays, but I'll just show you this right now because we're talking about it. So yeah, this is the game. They did bring the top 6 as expected. So again, I had my dedicated lead was just, the Greninja just to get up the spikes, right? So here, this is pretty much the best lead for me in my opinion, is just maybe they go for an electric move, right? And I get a free click, but they don't. They make the correct play and they just go for their own hazards. So yeah, their plan is the same thing, just rocks and then ceaseless edge spike, because they're going to assume that they're going to be able to keep all the hazards up. So I don't go for the third layer there because, again, Sandy Shocks is one of those Pokemon that it doesn't take a lot from Bullet Punch or even Quick Attack. And I don't have my Terra on an Amorous is electric type, and it can't one-shot. Like, I'm not boosting, I'm just agility. I can't one-shot Sandy Shocks, and that is something that can one-shot me back. So I prioritize damage on, I'm thinking of my win conditions, I'm prioritizing damage on a Pokemon that can kind of stop my 2 win conditions. And I get to see its item too, it's Pasho Berry. It only does 26 because I'm not a water type no more, so it's just like a max HP, probably like max speed, maybe Sandy Shocks. So, but I do get my 2 spikes up and I go right into this guy and get up my rocks. So I have a lot of hazards up early game. This is going well so far. Now here is, they reveal to be Specs Moonblast as expected. I eat my Citrus Fairy, but this is a tough click for me because, right, like I'm screens with Knockoff and Healing Wish, and I want to get the Healing Wish, like, because being able to Healing Wish like something like a Scizor or a Hands could be very, very crucial for my team. But okay, so this is Owen. I'm sure you probably know who he is, right? He uploads like YouTube and stuff. OG Albina.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So he can be pretty aggressive. So the problem is if I just stay in here and set a light screen or a reflect or something, 2 more Moonblasts will kill me, and then I will not be able to get my Healing Wish up. So he really should not stay in here. This is his best Pokemon, right? And it pretty much claims every time it comes in. But I do have to take into account him just maybe expecting a U-turn or something and potentially just staying in. So I do just quickly go for the Healing Wish. So my Mesprit doesn't really do much here. And then to make things worse, he brings in Sandy Shocks. So I can't bring in Scizor, right? I could maybe go Hands and take like a big Earth Power and then kill him with Earthquake, and then my Healing Wish will still be in the air. But that's not ideal. Like, I need Hands to come into something like Goldengo or Samurott. And I can't, if my Enamorous had Earth Power, I would 1,000,000% go Enamorous, because then I still keep my Healing Wish in the air and I can threaten this with a KO. But again, I'm Moonblast, Mystical Fire, Terra Blast with Electric Agility. So I can't even KO him with Enamorous here. So I have to go into my Rhydon and my healing which only does 6%. It's puts me in a good position because again he can't touch me and I do get a big hit off on something, but Mesprit literally just gave 6% to Rhydon and scouted that it was Specs Valiant, which is pretty like easy to assume going into this matchup. So that didn't really go so well for me. But again, I do have my hazards up. I do have my 2-win condition still, and I have Rhydon who, like I said, he doesn't really switch into. Like I can just click free Earthquake here. He goes Samurai, and boom, this thing is dead after like once it comes back in from spikes. So this was one of the key things down. I go into hands to take a hit, expecting like a ceaseless edge, right? And again, he doesn't know that, but this is like pointless for him. Like this doesn't affect my team at all. So because I'm boot spam. So his better play was definitely just to go for a water move here, but again, he doesn't know. So he goes into this guy and I'm like, okay, I can use one of my, I can throw in Scizor here because it's, although it's my win condition, it's the only thing that can kind of take this hit or else I'm going to pick something. And I can't just go down the sack wart this badly or else I'm not going to be able to win this game. There's no way that he is clicking a fighting move in front of Iron Hands because I did pack Heavy Slam, which obviously will KO the Valiant. So I know, okay, he's gonna click Moonblast. I can take one, and then I can get a knockoff on something. I really thought that he was going to bring in Talonflame, right? But I guess he didn't want me to defog, so Golden Go also makes sense. And by knocking it off, I see this thing's item, and it is that Colbur Berry set. So this was crucial because, like, again, thinking of my Scizor win condition, this was one of the things that could take a Bullet Punch, Quick Attack, and then obviously it had Colbur Berry for knockoff, and I'm already at 62%, so Shadow Ball would probably had a good chance to just KO me from here, right? But because I was able to get this in early and get rid of the item early, I can save the Scizor, and then come back later and potentially just kill it with +2 Bullet Punch. So this was probably the first mistake that he made, actually. Like, I don't think he's making any bad plays necessarily. So he goes for Shadow Ball in front of the Scizor, and he does 34, and he sees on boots, and I talked to a couple of people after the game and on his team, and he did have Dazzling Gleam, right? So he saw that Shadow Ball did 34. He knows on boots, unless he just didn't realize it in the game. There's really no reason not to click Dazzling Gleam here, right? Because like even if I go back into Scizor, like okay, I just gain nothing from that, and then he could just kill me with a Shadow Ball. I'm not going to go Enamorous here because that's kind of crazy. I could, but like even if I do, then he clicks Dazzling Gleam, like he still gets damage on Enamorous, which is fine. So there's really no reason for him to switch here, but he does switch. I don't know why he did that. He must have just not thought it killed, or he just didn't realize my item. I don't know. I'm not really too sure. He might have thought that maybe I was Roselli Berry because it could work versus Moonblast too. But yeah, I revealed boots, so that was kind of just like a weird turn there. So I go for Earthquake because he does go Talonflame here, but then again, I don't necessarily agree with this play. He stays in to burn me, which is fine, but he risks me. I could have Facade, or I could paralyze him with Thunder Punch, as I do, and just chip on just Talonflame, which is something that you don't want when like Scizor could be a potential endgame sweeper. So he can just roost, but he's risking either a para, he's risking me clicking Earthquake on the roost, but then I think he realizes, okay, maybe I shouldn't sack this guy, and he goes back into Sandy Shocks. But again, what did I say is the play for me every time Sandy Shocks comes in? Is just to go Rhydon. He can't touch Rhydon. And I think that's why these hazards are so important, is because even if he calls that in doubles, he's still taking hazards on things. So it's not necessarily a bad thing for me either. And if he doesn't double like he doesn't here, then boom, I get a free click. So I know he's switching here. So going back to this turn, I know he has to switch here, or if he just wants to sack it, it's fine too. So my 3 attacks. It's Terra Blast with Terra Flying, Earthquake, Rock Slide. So what would you click here? If I had to ask you real quick, like what do you think is the click here?
I feel like either I'd say Rock Slide probably, just because.
Yep.
I don't think Valiant will switch in because it's still pretty good against your team, right?
Yep.
And Rock Slide hits everything else. Golden Go probably dies to it.
Yep.
And I don't think he wants the Terra yet because Enamorous can still come in. and because it kind of needs it to kill the Talonflame. So I'd go Rock Slide here.
Yep, I would too. That's exactly what I was thinking. Because again, even if he stays into, even though it resists it, like it doesn't do anything. So, and it does. Oops, it does cover for him making the play into Talonflame. I don't think Talonflame was the correct play there because again, he's just insanely prone to Scizor just sweeping him. I think he should probably have gone Ogerpon, to be honest. Ogerpon lives any hit unless I go for that Terra Flying Terra Blast, and if I do that, then he knows like I waste my Terra, and then it forces me out or forces me to Terra the next turn with Ogerpon. So, but he goes Talonflame. Obviously, I'm not complaining about that. Then he brings in Iron Valiant again, and I just sack off the hands, right? There's no reason not to keep this guy around, and I can see what he locks himself into. And this is where I kind of just go for game. Now, this is, again, if you're on his point of view, you have to consider his, or like my win condition or his lose condition. And he's got to think about, okay, if I switch out here and Scizor Swords Dances, I just lose the game. So he can't do that. What he could have done was one, either kill, is he could have clicked, so he could have clicked after I killed Talonflame here. He could have clicked a fighting move on the Rhydon because there's no shot I'm going Enamorous right on this turn right here because he can easily click Moonblast. So what a fighting move does is it covers me just staying in and sacking this, or again forces my Terra. It covers, the Iron Hand sack, which is what I do, and it also prevents Scizor from coming in after, or at least it prevents Scizor from Swords Dancing. I would have to Bullet Punch if I bring in Scizor, because he'll kill me with a fighting move. But he goes for Moonblast. So he has to think here, okay, if I Swords Dance here, he loses. So I think his best click was honestly just a Moonblast again, because I can live the Moonblast, yeah, and I can Swords Dance. But then what he can do is he can switch and then come back in and revenge me with Vacuum Wave, because he's going to have Vacuum Wave. So another Moonblast would have definitely put me in Specs Vacuum Wave range, but he doesn't do that. So he must just assume I'm going to click Bullet Punch and not even think about Swords Dance, and this is where he loses the game. I Swords Dance and everything's in range and he just loses. So I don't think he necessarily played bad or built bad. I think he just wasn't expecting the hazard stack himself, and then there were just like 1 to 2 turns that I think he just didn't really play correctly that I was able to capitalize on. And it was hard. It was hard to win this game. It probably doesn't seem hard, especially because I didn't even Terra. I didn't Terra either Pokemon. I didn't even bring in the Enamorous. But I think one or 2 turns, if he just gets correct, it just makes the game super hard, and he should have won this game. I think everyone said it, even people on his team too. Sorry, gotta text real quick.
Yeah, no worries.
Sorry, yeah. So I think just like, again, going into these matchups where it's not favored, you just kind of have to think of things that maybe your opponent won't expect. And what I mean by that is like that low tier Rhydon that actually you could argue Rhydon is probably like the best Pokemon. Maybe Rhydon and Scizor was like the best Pokemon in this game because it came in multiple times and it got off the rocks and it got off a good amount of hits and it completely stopped one of his Pokemon. So it's just like things like that where like you can do to kind of help yourself in matchups that are not really good. Like it was just a bad matchup, but it's just something like that. And then yeah, like obviously he made, like I said, those 2 misplays or whatever, but it's rare that people play like a perfect game. It does happen, but it's rare. So you just have to try to capitalize on those types of things if they do happen. So all right, enough of that matchup. I know it was a pretty long time in that matchup, but we're going to talk about the other matchup. I don't have like the pace or the replay or anything. We're just going to kind of talk about what's good and what's bad, and then kind of go over like some sets that maybe might work and whatever. So you initially said that this matchup was not favorable. I think it is favorable, though I don't think it's like a huge favorable where it's like, oh yeah, it's like 80-20. I think it's more like, I would say like 65-35 or maybe even 60-40. So, but I do think the blue side is favorable here. So, and the first thing that you said, which is completely true, is the Excadrill. Like, there's just, look at the ground resist. It's 1, Flanders. Especially with sand, so it'll be able to outspeed everything. It's just completely hard, especially too because it's a Terra Captain, so you can literally just make it beat the Landers too, and then what do they do after? So I think when you have such a good offensive Pokemon and such a good matchup, you kind of want to just support that Pokemon. Like I said, you want to support your win condition. And Excadrill is also like a really good spinner here. Like it doesn't need a lot of moves. Offensive moves only needs Earthquake and then one coverage move to hit Landers, and then it can spin. There's no ghost. There's no ghost on the other team, right? Like they can't spin block. So that gives other Pokemon the ability to not run like Boots, because knowing like you're very well capable of removing hazards on your side of the field. And then Mr. Valiant again, shocker. I think Iron Valiant is crazy. I think it's probably the best Pokemon, honestly, in SV that's typically allowed. Like usually you don't see like Jin Pao or whatever allowed, but it's just Valiant has so many good matchups. It's just crazy. So you mentioned that you would run physical Valiant, and I 1,000,000% agree, because even if they have like a Landorus, like which is a pretty good physically defensive Pokemon with Intimidate, if the Valiant weakens the Landorus, like that just makes Exogil's, game way easier. And like you said, Slowking does kind of not wall, but like it's pretty good SPDF wise into like a special Valiant. And I'm one of those people where like if you see a Slowking Galar versus like something that runs knockoff, most of the time you're right. Like I think you also said it'll be Cobra Berry, or it could be Cobra Berry. I'm
Yeah,
more,
it probably does this matchup.
yeah. I forget. I watched it real quick, the replay. The team on the right did win, but I forget what the items were. I don't remember. This was from a Draft League World Cup game too, which was like a thing on Smogon. Um, but yeah, so in these types of things, when I have like a Sneasler or like an Iron Valiant that can easily run like a Dark move into like something like Slowking, I typically go for Shadow Claw. I know it's a bit weaker, and I know knockoff does remove items, but if I want my Valiant to be a win condition, I will probably run ST Shadow Claw. Now, I don't think it should be the win condition in this game, so I do think knockoff is the correct like move here, because one, you reveal the Slowking's item. Maybe it's not Colbur Berry for some reason, or maybe they switch into something else. Maybe they bring out Creamy or something to try to check Valiant. Like you get rid of an item, so knockoff is always good, and that's what I mean by it forces a lot of progress. So, and then if you look elsewhere, like the only fairy resist is the Slowking. So, like if you can just get rid of the Slowking maybe with your other dark type, with Tyranitar or something else, like an offensive Zapdos or whatever, like bang, just fairy move is completely free into this team, and it just kills something. Another thing is too Ogerpon, because when it Terras, it gets that Speed F boost. That's why I also think Valiant's physical is a lot better here too. Um, and things like that. So, but you have a lot of sets you can run with Valiant here. There's not really a wrong set in my opinion. Another thing is the other fairy type, Gardevoir. Like I said, we already mentioned, there's only one fairy resist, which is Slowking, and there's only one psychic resist, which is Duraludon. And Duraludon does not have good SPDF. I think it's like 70 HP, 50 SPDF, or something crazy like that. Like it can run
Around there, yeah.
yeah, it can run Eviolite to kind of help a little bit, but if you're running like a Specs, or even like, I think Scarf would probably be a bit better here, just because it'll outspeed everything, and naturally it doesn't really outspeed a lot. But even if you run like a Scarf Psychic, like Gardevoir has crazy high special attack, like 125 or something, like it's gonna do a shit ton of damage to Duraludon. So I think like the offense from the blue side is just crazy overwhelming for the defense, like on the red side. Like they just don't have proper defense to check all of these threats. So I think this game realistically should be over quickly, like turn wise. I think they'll just run out of Pokemon to kind of switch into, and the red side will probably have to like try to just like set up with a Baxcalibur or Ogerpon and just go for game. Like, but even then, like we'll talk about a little bit of their offensive Pokemon and compared to our defense on the blue side. But even then, like I don't think that's a winnable strategy for the red side. And the last note is Zapdos is not forced into heavy duty boots here, because like I said, we have a really good spinner. They can't do anything about the spinner. If you want Zapdos to maybe be like a citrus berry, so it could take 2 Ivy Cudgels from Ogerpon, or maybe you want it to be like Chardy Berry to take a Stone Edge from Landorus or whatever, because you can always just bring in, or Helmet, you could bring in Zapdos when they bring in Landorus for drill, and you could just bring in Zapdos, and if they U-turn or whatever, bam, you get some more chip, you get static, whatever. Or guess what? They only have one flying resist, which is Duraludon. Again, so you could just run like a Sharp Beak Zapdos or something with Hurricane. Like Duraludon cannot take all these hits. So that's kind of where you see a big problem in like the key resistances on the red side's team. They could maybe bring like, geez, I don't know, like a Spadef Alcremie or something with Calm Mind to try to check Zapdos, but even then you can run like Metal Sound, or like maybe if the Slowking is like Assault Vest or something, you could run Metal Sound to lower its Spadef by 2, and that's not going to check Zapdos long term. So there's just so many good like offensive Pokemon on this team that it's just like it's hard. It's very hard for the red team to kind of do anything. But if we look at the two offensive Pokemon on the red side, we have Ogerpon, but Ogerpon is actually checked by Synestia. It's like one of the few Pokemon that can kind of check the Water, Grass, Stab, and it's outsped by Valiant and Drill and Sand, and it's prone to getting T-Waved or Static if it clicks like anything but Ivy Cudgel, like Power Wave, U-Turn, whatever. So while Ogerpon, like it might be pretty good in this matchup, like you may think at first glance, like even Toxapex too, like it's just not, there's a lot of things that the blue side can do to kind of contain the Ogerpon and not let it go crazy here. And then the other offensive pet threat is the Baxcalibur, but it's soft checked, so it's not completely checked. What I mean by soft checked is it could come in like once or twice, but eventually, yes, Baxcalibur will be able to break these two things, but the game is not going to be able to last that long for Baxcalibur to come in multiple times. Like the red side is just going to run out of Pokemon, as simple as that, because of the offense on the blue side. So yeah, you can use your Terra on Synestia to like Fairy or Steel maybe. Probably Fairy because Steel it'll have Earthquake for Toxapex anyway. But you can make a Fairy to kind of check the Baxcalibur because yeah, not having Terra on Drill might not be ideal, but you can just run like you said. I think you said Balloon too. Like you're making all these points that just make a ton of sense to where like Ironhead will still like do like a decent chunk to Landers. It's not gonna be able to just kill it the first time it comes in, but you could just run Balloon on Drill, which I think is what they actually ended up doing in the real game. I think they ran Terra Synestia and then Balloon on Drill. The blue side did win for sure. It was kind of close. I don't know. I forget like what happened. I don't think it should have been close, but it was. But the blue side did end up winning. But yeah, so like their two best offensive Pokemon, like you can deal with a little bit, and then your like top 4 offensive Pokemon they can't deal with at all. So that's why I think like this is the type of matchup where it's just like you don't want to like bring any crazy prep. You don't want to assume things. Just bring your best sets, and you should realistically win this game if you don't like make a ton of misplays. And that's another thing too when we talk about battling is like kind of when you should predict and when you really shouldn't predict if you don't have to. In a matchup like this, if your team is built like with a good solid like backbone and idea going into the battle, 99% of the time you're gonna win unless like you get crazy hacks or you brain fart and you just start making a bunch of bad plays, I guess. So after seeing all this, what are you thinking? How's the matchup? And then actually what I want you to do too is like we'll do it together kind of, but we're gonna build from the blue side and we're gonna like just build like we're not going to actually go into the builder and like build sets or whatever, but just kind of like throw out ideas of kind of what we'd want to bring in like the sets. But do you think this matchup is still kind of favorable for the red side, or do you think it's more even or blue side favored or what now?
I think it's slightly favored for the blue side now that you kind of explained it.
Yeah.
Because before my main sort of thought was like Baxcalibur can kind of break through, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if the Synestia Terra's into Fairy, Water Pond can kind of be a threat.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what you said makes sense, right? You could prep Zapdos with like Citrus Berry, for example, if you're worried about Water Pond. So then, that can't really break you too well.
Yeah.
And also, Excadrill or Valiant can revenge kill,
Yeah.
depending on like Sand Up or if Sand's up,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I just feel like the blue side's offense is a lot faster and harder to deal with because with the red side, you can at least revenge kill,
Mm-hmm.
but with the blue side, it's a lot harder to do so.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, so yeah, let's just try to like kind of build like a mini team, nothing serious with the blue side. So like I said, remember we go back to our steps in team building. Like you want to look at the Terra captains and like the weaknesses. So I obviously already pointed out a lot of the weaknesses. So we can kind of just go into the third note, which was the win condition. Like, what do you think our win condition should be on the blue side?
I feel like our win condition should be Excadrill for sure,
Yep.
right? And we could like maybe uh, I mean, we'd have to look into it more, but like position our Zapdos or
Mm-hmm.
Valiant or Tyranitar to kind of chip down landers
Yep.
because they don't exactly have great switches into them. Like
Yep.
with Zapdos, right? Glowking can maybe switch into it if it's at full HP, but
Yep.
even then, Valiant, it also has to check Valiant as well, right? So
Yep.
it's kind of hard for it to handle both.
Yep. Agree.
So yeah,
That's why I think. Yeah, I think I 100% agree with you. I think Excadrill is the best win condition here, because then you have things like that Gardevoir if you want to bring it, or Zapdos to kind of just help break the other team for Gardevoir or for Excadrill to easily sweep the team. I do think like out of the top 7 Pokemon, you do have to bench one, which is probably like the hardest decision to be honest. I think in the actual game, I believe the team benched actually Gardevoir, which is fine. Like, yeah, like I said, it breaks really easily. But the other 6 Pokemon, like, you can see why you want to bring them, and they're all like good into this matchup, honestly. Anyways, maybe if you wanted to bring like a Scarf Drill, because again, you really just need Earthquake and then Iron Head if Flanders is still alive, and then just not bring the Sand and bring Gardevoir instead. But they ended up bringing the Sand, which is fine. So having a win condition, yeah. Would you bring like a? Do you think like an SD set or kind of just like attacking, kind of like soft Sand with like Earthquake and then Iron
no,
Head or
I
Terra.
think I'd run. I think I'd run SD, right? Because you could pretty easily set up on landers.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd probably go like Earthquake, Iron Head, Rapid Spin, and Swords Dance.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
think that's pretty good bringing to them.
With like a balloon.
Yeah, with the balloon.
Yep. Yeah. That's. I think that might be the exact set they actually brought. I know they brought balloon. I don't remember the moves, but yeah, that is a really good. That's a really strong. I'd probably do the same exact thing honestly, because then you don't have to use your Terra either. You can just Terra with the teapot for Baxcalibur if you want. Um.
Yeah, and that also gives you a lot more room, right? Because Baxcalibur can be threatening, so it's good to have the extra insurance against it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think. What do you think about leads here? Like, what do you think would be a good lead? I think there's one Pokemon I think is a pretty good lead. I don't know if they let it in the game, but I think there's a pretty strong lead here.
I feel like Zapdos, right?
Yep.
Because
Yep.
if Landers leads, you could Hurricane.
Yep.
You could Volt Switch against like Ogerpon,
Yep.
Glowking. You could always just switch out to like Pex if they lead Baxcalibur. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd
Yeah.
probably go that.
That is exactly. Yeah. You literally, dude. Why am I even tutoring you, man? What the heck? Like that's exactly like everything you said just makes 1,000,000% sense. Like because they're not gonna obviously versus Zapdos Baxcalibur, they're not gonna click Earthquake or whatever, right? And yeah, like if you chip their Landorus or their Slowking early, like that just opens up Valiant Excadrill. Like that just helps your win condition or your best Pokemon do its job earlier. Um, and then if you get a good matchup versus like maybe like I don't know Mienshao, well Mienshao could run Triple Axle, but it would be tough to click that from them. One because you could be scarfed. Honestly, Zapdos if you lead it, they might not expect it. And two, I'm pretty sure if you're like defensive, you could probably even like live the Axle anyway, and then get static and all that. So, and guess what? If they lead like Duraludon, which is probably the one Pokemon that you don't do the most damage to, and they get up the rocks, like you can still dent it for your Valiant to just. I'm sorry for your Gardevoir to bring Psychic if you just to click Psychic if you have the Gardevoir with you, or guess what? Even if you just dent the Zapdos or dent the Duraludon as they click Stealth Rocks, like that's really like the only Pokemon they could probably switch into electric moves in the first place, you know? So just chipping that right away would mean like, okay, next time Zapdos comes in, like boom, like something's taking a shit ton of damage. Unless maybe, like I said, maybe Alchemy or AV Slowking come, but even if those come, that's better for your other Pokemon anyway. So yeah, you got the lead down, and then just kind of supporting your X-Duel. Another reason why I think too, like Gardevoir, I would probably personally bring Gardevoir here is because yeah, it breaks with ease, but then it can also support my win condition with Healing Wish too, if you want to as well. So I think that's a good Pokemon. I think honestly, okay, this might sound crazy. I probably wouldn't do this, but like looking at it, like Gardevoir might be a better like might have a better matchup than Valiant. But I don't know if ever benching Valiant is ever the play because that amount is just crazy good. It just even like just having it on your roster and having your opponent having to try to prep for whatever Valiant set you bring, like, is already enough. And then if you have it in the game, like, and you don't bring it in right away, like, they gotta kind of think about like what Valiant set it is. If you don't bring it, like, it is what it is. But I think Gardevoir is still like, exceptionally well here. But I don't know. I think you have to kind of bring Valiant. It's just that good of a Pokemon anyway.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I can kind of understand what you're saying though, right? Because Cloaking is the it could be Spadef, but like
hmm,
I feel like it might be Fizdef.
yeah,
It'll probably be mixed actually, because it needs to handle Zapdos and a potential Swords Dance Valiant.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It might just end up being Fizdef and then using like Duraludon or Alcremie Spadef for like Zapdos or Gardevoir, but yeah, I don't think that's really a long term strategy because Landorus is probably going to also be Fizdef here for Excadrill. So, but even then, like Excadrill can literally just be Terra Ice or something, and like it just can't do anything about it. So it's hard, but like I said, I do think Valiant coming with like physical is also good just because it outspeeds Ogerpon and hits it from the physical side, which is always a good thing. You know, it's the only thing that outspeeds Ogerpon, and then Drill obviously in the sand. So, but yeah, that's pretty much, you know, you bring Teapot and Toxapex and then the other 4 offensive Pokemon, and that's really it. Like, I know we didn't actually build the team, but and then Tyranitar it'd probably be Smoothrock here. I would assume, and just like your
Yeah,
rocker, and then you could probably use it to check. You just throw it in versus like Slowking, and just get knockoffs versus things, or even like if they bring like Cyclizar or something, you know, you could bring it in versus that. It could also probably take a hit from Baxcalibur. Not if it's boosted, like +2 or +1, but it could probably take a Baxcalibur hit from neutral, like an Earthquake. I would think. So
it does. Yeah, I think so.
yeah, and then um, obviously it's not gonna take Ogerpon or Mienshao hits well, but like I said, you could just throw it in versus Slowking or even Baxcalibur if you need to. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this matchup. We're not going to build or anything, but those are pretty much like just the key points. And these things that I point out, like, again, as you get better at like looking for weaknesses, like these are things that I spot very quickly. Like, I'm really good at team building. I think team building is probably what I excel at the most. My drafting, I would say, is probably like average, and then my battling is above average, but not like, you know, crazy or anything. But once you just like focus on like looking at matchups a ton, and something that I used to do is I would kind of just like pick up like random matchups from like my friends like leagues or just like things they post in like team tours or whatever, and just kind of like try to identify like weaknesses, and then I would look at the battle and kind of see like if the sets that I would bring into like their team is the sets that the person actually brought in the real game, and I would do it for like good players, like players that are better than me, so I can kind of see like if I'm kind of spotting like similar weaknesses and ideas as those good players, because there are definitely players that are like known as like top team builders. I think Habita, I don't know if you know who he is, but Habita is considered like a really good team builder. And 100 or Craig, he wins a lot of tours and he's a really good player. Those team builders are like really good at spotting weaknesses and bringing good sets. And I just like kind of watch a bunch of their replays and try to like see kind of what they see, you know. And I think that's something that players who maybe aren't good at team building should start to do, because I think the better you are at that, the better you are at bringing a good team, and then obviously bringing a good team gives you a better chance of, you know, winning the battle. What that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So now we have your game here. So I'm going to actually exit out and we're going to build this team together here. So this is the matchup. And then we're going to go ahead and build your team. So I didn't really look at it much. I just put it on the PowerPoint, and we're going to go through it together. So you did say that you had some ideas already, right?
Yeah, so
Okay, so talk to
I
me. What
feel
were you
like
thinking?
okay, so I kind of had like I have an idea for the lead, sort of.
Okay.
I'm thinking of maybe like some kind of Stealth Rocks Thunderwave Necrozma, right? Because it's able to live a hit from everything apart from like a Z, Cure, and Black. And if they lead that, then I could always just go into my Klefki, right? So
Okay.
I think that's pretty good into them. And I could run like Heat Wave with like Psyche EMZ just
Mm-hmm.
to get like a nuke off on like the Torn or Clef.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's kind of what I have planned for the lead. In terms of like my offensive threats, I feel like Aerodactyl looks pretty good into them, right? It
Yep.
outspeeds and revenges all of their top mons,
Yep.
and apart from like Ferrothorn, maybe nothing really wants to switch into it.
Yep.
But even Ferrothorn can get chipped down throughout the match, and I could always run Fire Fang if I wanted to, right? So
Yep.
that's
Agree.
kind of what I was thinking.
Okay. Yeah. So just looking at this real quick. Yeah, Thunderwave is definitely good. I think you definitely want Thunderwave on Clefty. They don't have an electric type, or they have what, Charger Bug electric, or is that just Bug?
It's electric as well.
Okay, so their one pointer is electric, and they don't have a ground type, so they don't have a like Thunderwave immunity really. Um, the Lopunny can be limber before Mega is something to take note though. So Thunderwave isn't completely free until that thing is Mega'd. But I'm also just looking at Necrozma though, and their team, and like Psychic, like Photon plus Heatwave just nukes everything on their team. So while I do think it should have a good lead matchup versus anything, because it just is such a good Pokemon in this game, but I feel like Necrozma might be a better like win condition. Like just all it needs is 2 attacks, right? So you can easily run like Autotomize and Calm Mind or something like that if you want, because they can't block you with Unaware Clefable, right? Because Photon Geyser ignores that. So I think if you just go to +1 and then you just like look at the calcs versus every single Pokemon on their team, what lives a hit? It's probably only Kyurem or Volcanion, maybe.
Yeah,
Um,
probably those because they should be bulky enough, right?
yeah, but again, what are they weak to? Stealth Rock, right? And you can definitely get Stealth Rock up. What's their mover? Their mover is Torn,
Torn.
or I don't know if Volcanion gets Defog in this generation. I think it does. Let me check real
Pretty
quick.
sure it does.
Yeah. So yeah, it does. So, but those typically are not like great defoggers, and guess what? Like they have to take the rocks in the first place to defog them, right? So if you just like, let's look at Necrozma, right, and the calcs. And let's say you want to go, yeah. So like, let's say you're this set +1. So let's look at Torn first. Let's say it's bulky, like max HP. Okay, so that's not a switch in Kyurem. So we're assuming Stealth Rock is going to be up, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
this is not boosting either. This is just straight up just +1. Let's do Kyurem. Let's say it's max HP. Okay, so if it's max HP Kyurem, there's a chance that it can live a +1 Photon. So Lopunny is going to die. Clefable. Let's see. Do you think Clefable is going to be physically defensive or specially defensive? I think it kind of has to be physically defensive for
It has to, yeah, for
Garchomp,
Weavile and Garchomp.
Weavile, like even Arrow too, right? So it's not going to be Spidef here. So it's going to be this set again. It pretty much dies. Like you can. I don't know if you should use your Z for this guy or use your Z, because I think if you Z, right, like that takes away the whole Unaware, right? I think. Let me see. Yeah, it does. But still, it still does so much damage actually. So maybe you do run Z Psychic. You definitely can, because the things that you're gonna Heat Wave, like Ferrothorn and Doublade and Charger Bug, I guess, like they're all gonna die at +1. So you can definitely use your Z Psychic to nuke the Clefable or nuke maybe Volcanion. Everything else, as you saw after rocks, like it just dies, man. So I think that is certainly the way to kind of win this game. Holy shit. Yeah, even this, if rocks are up, like, and it would need to be like Spidef to live, really.
Yeah, and
So
they might not bring that.
yeah, so I definitely think like Necrozma is your easiest win condition here. Now, I did say like perhaps Calm Mind and Autotomize, which in theory might be a bit tricky to get off like both. So if you're not comfortable with doing both, you could easily just run Calm Mind and Morning Sun and just be very, very bulky, and not really invest in special attack, because then you can just set up on a lot of things. Like you can set up easily on like Volcanion. I would probably be like more physically defensive with Calm Mind, so then you can probably take 2 returns from Mega Lopunny as well. Mega Lopunny is going to be what, Adamant here, do you think? Or no, it's got to be
It
Jolly.
has to be Jolly, otherwise Weavile will just outspeed.
Yeah, so let's check Necrozma. Frustration. So yeah, I'm saying even like some defensive investment, like it will be able to avoid two shots from Lopunny. So that's even like a setup target. You do have to be careful of. I believe it gets does it get Encore in this generation or is that later?
It gets Encore.
It does, right? Yeah. Okay. So that is something you do have to be careful about. Maybe like that's a Pokemon that you might just want to just straight up OHKO and just kill it and not mess around with it. Um, but I do think some sort of win condition Necrozma is certainly the play here. I think it's just he just can't really do. He can't like he doesn't have like maybe Assault Vest Tornadus is what he brings, but again like you have so many physical attackers here. I think Assault Vest is kind of trolling. Plus you can get like you could Thunder Wave him, and it's just like I just feel like it's not gonna unless he's worried about like dude I don't know like Venusaur or something like I don't know like it's just not very good. Or even Emolga is like good into Torn. Like you can because it has what's it called right? It has
Static, yeah.
static, yeah. So he can't just like freely U-turn. And even Emolga too. Like I know I said like you should consider your lower Pokemon. You have a pretty good matchup here probably. So I don't know if you'll need it, but like just like look at just free like just Volt Switch spam versus everything. You can't stop it, and you can bring in like literally anything. Like even Garchomp. Like dude, the Earthquake resist is Torn. So you can even if you that's why I was saying like maybe you bring like instead of Z on this guy, like you can bring maybe like a Lumberry or something to kind of like avoid like a Thunder Wave or something, because if you run like let's say you run like Z ground, right? Like he doesn't have a switch in. Like his switch in is probably gonna be Clefable if I had to guess. But Earthquake into Z Earthquake will most certainly kill Fizdef Clefable. It'll kill Fizdef Ferrothorn. It'll kill anything. His only switch into Garchomp is literally Torn. And all that takes is one Stone Edge click and he just dies. Plus, like he would probably have to Z you to OHKO you, right? I don't even think like an Icy Wind um will OHKO Garchomp, right? Let's just
No, I
say
doubt it.
your offensive Hurricane does half, so Z Hurricane you will have probably some bulk, so you probably won't even get one shot by that. But let's check. Icy Wind. So no, he would have to be like a boosting item. Like let's say he's like Expert Belt maybe. Not even Expert Belt won't. It's got to be like Life Orb.
It'll probably be Modest though.
You think so? Let me see.
It still outspeeds Garchomp, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Yeah. So okay, so he will be honest. So maybe like if he's Expert Belt with Icy Wind or just Supersonic Side Strike can kill you. So again, you will probably have some bulk, but that is something to consider to run just Z Earthquake, or even you could run like Z Steel move too, because it still covers the Earthquake, the Clefable, and
The Clef.
it can still kill Garchomp with or Karenbeck without having to lock into Outrage. So there's a bunch of things, or I guess Z Steel move would do a lot to Torn too. I probably won't kill him or anything, but let me see real quick. Iron Head, Z. So yeah, you could use it for Torn if you don't want to risk missing Stone Edge. Because again, after rocks, if it's offensive, like there's a good chance it kills. So, and if he's modest too, and he's offensive, he's not gonna have a lot of bulk because you'd only have like this much to outspeed Garchomp, So he would only have like 30 or whatever in HP if he does it like that. So yeah, you definitely have options. Like your offensive Pokemon. Were you just thinking to bring like your top 6 here, or were you thinking?
Yeah, probably top 6. Like, I mean, Venusaur could be good for like Clef, but like kind of struggles into Torn, right? And Kieran.
Yeah,
So
Volcanion. Yeah. I think just top 6 makes a lot of sense. And then if they bring Volcanion and you don't have Jellicent, that's kind of a problem. So
yeah, that would be rough.
yeah, I definitely think Jellicent makes sense. They might not bring Volcanion. I'm not too sure. They could. They probably will bring top 6 too. You do have to be a little bit cautious. I guess they could bring Charger Bug for Sticky Web, and I don't think we're gonna have removal here.
I don't actually think it gets Sticky Whip this gen.
Oh, it doesn't.
I'll check.
Yeah, I don't know. Charger bug.
No, it doesn't.
What the heck? Why does it even have that thing?
I don't know.
What is it for? Maybe he probably thought it did or something. I mean, I did. I don't know. But okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and just start putting the team on together. So we'll just put all 6 Pokemon that we're gonna bring for now, which is the top 6, right? Necro, Weavile, Klefki, Mega Arrow, and Jelly. Okay, so oh, one sec. Okay, so I do think, yeah, we could just start with this guy. This is probably going to be our win condition, right? Because like just 90% of the time, like this thing is just going to end up sweeping the game. So again, do you think it's all about, do you want to go double setup? Because if you do go the autonomized calm mind set, there's a couple of things to take note. If you do end up getting both of those off, though, you more than likely just win the game. You do have to be careful of fake out, though. From low pony, he can kind of just fake out and go back in, whatever. But he would still probably have to sack a couple of Pokemon if he does do that. The other option is just Calm Mind and Recovery. I think that might be a bit better, to be honest, with like a Lumberry. And then just investing in your defenses here, because you're going to be boosting your special attack, and he already has so much special attack anyway, right? So this is where something where like I don't think you should just do like max special attack, right? Because like it's an offensive Pokemon. Like no, like you want to be able to take hits, and kind of you're gonna deal a lot back anyway by boosting your special attack. So this is something where, and then I think you should run like heavily defensive, because you don't need a lot of speed either. Like Clefable's not gonna run speed. The only thing you have to worry about is like the Volcanion speed. But again, even if Volcanion is faster than you, like you're Calm Mind, so it should not be able to break past you if you can set up with it. I don't think Volcanion is able to boost its special attack in any way, right? I don't think so.
No. And I
Yeah,
don't know if they'd hard switch on you anyways, right? So you could get a calm mind or 2 off before it even comes in.
right. So I think personally Calm Mind is a bit better, but if you prefer Calm Mind Recovery, but if you prefer Calm Mind Autotomize, you can do that too. I don't know if you have a preference.
The only thing I'm concerned with like recovery rate is the Curum Z.
Mm-hmm. So
I don't know how much that would do.
yeah, so let's say, okay, so let's look at that calc actually. That's a good calc to look at. Here on black, OU Z move, max attack with free shock.
Oh yeah, I'm really sorry to cut you off, but I gotta do something for like 20 minutes.
That's good. No, you're good.
Would you prefer if like we continue like when we get back or another time or
Yeah.
what
When
works
you get,
best for you?
yeah, I'll be here. When you get back, it's fine. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, go, no problem. All right. So I think we were looking at like here on black and Necrozma's calcs, right? The Z move, I think is what you wrote about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I looked at it, and yeah, there's really not much you can do about it. Like you just die to the Z move pretty much. So I think if you did have like a setup Necrozma or something, and then they bring it in, like I think your best play is just to switch. I don't think it's like worth to risk it. Obviously the game state like matters and everything, but so I actually came up with this set while you were away. So I wonder if you can kind of see like, so it's just sub Calm Mind 2 attacks, max defense, right? So I think this is actually a pretty good lead, because I think if you get the correct lead versus this guy, with this guy, you're gonna get at least 2 Pokemon to start. And I wonder if you can kind of tell, what do you think I'm trying to abuse with this set on their team?
Definitely the Ferrothorn for sure, and probably the Clef as well.
Yep.
Because if
Yep.
they're lead Clef, I'm assuming they'd be like some kind of Stealth Rock set, right?
Yep. Definitely, yeah. So it's more so the Ferrothorn too, because you know, if Ferrothorn like leads, or even if it just brings in later, like Ferrothorn 1, if it's versus Necrozma, it's gonna click like Leechy, Toxic, Thunderwave, or just hazards, right? It's not gonna just straight up attack. And even if it does, we're like almost we're max defense, right? And its attacks are gonna probably be what, like Gyro Ball and like Power Whip, probably. Like those are the only attacks I would probably run here. So
Yeah, I'd assume so.
yeah, so these are the two attacks that's on the calc already. But the reason why we're max is because no speed is because these attacks do not break the sub. So ideally, what would happen is they click either a status move or rocks or something. You get a free sub, and then they're panicking because like we know how good these two attacks are into their team. Like they don't know what to do, and if they try to just stay in and break this up, like they're gonna realize they can't. So and this whole set too, like you don't need the whole sub combine to go off. Just a Fizz Def Necrozma, it's just good for things like low punny too. So it's not like you need to get this whole like sequence going where you abuse one of their two defensive Pokemon. But one, I think you likely can, and two, if you do, you are put like way ahead in this matchup. So I think sets like this where you can kind of get a big advantage is definitely like very helpful. I know I said like this this set doesn't become necessarily like a win con now, but I still think it's okay because like I said earlier, like that Garchomp and even Aerodactyl, like we have a lot of good Pokemon that have good, good matchups. And I think, like I said, it is important to think of like potential lead matchups. So you even said that lead Necrozma just like kind of with Thunderwave, but I do think lead Necrozma is really good here because even if they lead something like Torn, for example, like what's their click? They don't know. They don't really have a good click because a Z move will not Oko a bulky Necrozma, and if we're Z move, they can't click knockoff or something, and then we just kill them. Like they're not gonna. They probably have to click U-turn or taunt, like for Torn. So they don't really have a good Pokemon to kind of lead versus Necrozma. The only lead that would suck is Kyurem, because then they can just click their Z move for free, and we'd have to do some pivoting probably. But I don't know if they lead Kyurem because like a lead Arrow is also pretty likely, from our side. And
Yeah,
unless
it is pretty good into them.
yeah, and unless they're like Scarf Kyurem, like they would have to switch, or maybe was it Chardy, Kyurem, like they would have to switch. I could see them potentially running Chardy to kind of lure the Arrow maybe, and just outgoing it back with Ice Beam or something. But yeah, I do think this Necrozma is a really really good lead, and I know we talked about evening a little bit earlier. If you're leftovers, you do typically want a number divided by 16 to be even, but we're just max because of that. We don't want these things to break our sub. If we go to like 196, which would be like the bet, like a good number, because 384 is even into 16. Uh, Gyro Ball more than likely does break our subs. Same with Power Whip. So I absolutely think max is best here, and then also it helps with that low punny calcs. It doesn't really do much frustration. So they could be like, I don't know, like Power Up Punch Last Resort or some crazy thing. But oops. Actually, I just want to see how much Last Resort does at +1. So no, it's Power Up Punch into Last Resort won't kill. I think if they do like have Last Resort, it'll probably be like Fake Out or anything. But like, I don't think they're bringing that set because they want fighting coverage for Klefki. They want Ice Punch probably for Garchomp. So they're probably just gonna be standard low punny. They might attack like Encore, maybe Healing Wish or something on it, but I don't think they're gonna have like Last Resort or any of that crazy stuff. So I think Necrozma will be pretty good into low punny as well. So I think that's a pretty good lead. I do think Necrozma is probably the best lead. And you did say like Thunderwave was good because it is literally like free into their team, but I think something like Thunderwave on just Klefki would also suffice. So
Okay, I think that's fair. Yeah, because it's also, as you said before, right? You can also get a lot bigger of an advantage with the Necrozma lead with the sub combine set.
yeah.
Because it is nice to have like the Thunder Wave, right? But for example, versus like a lead Clefable,
Hmm.
right? It's still gonna be okay against it, but like you could get Thunder Waved, right? So
Yeah.
if I do feel like the sub is nice for that.
Yeah. So you think, yeah, because so as you can see, like at neutral, like the Moonblast will break this up, but like they're not gonna just click Moonblast turn one, right? Versus a Necrozma, they're gonna click either Rocks or Thunderwave or maybe even Knockoff or something. So if we sub it, then we Calm Mind, then they can't break it, and then they're in deep trouble. Unless they are unaware. Like if they just lead with like unaware Clefable, they could. But again, our Photon guys are once we boost, like it's gonna start doing a lot because Photon Geyser does ignore unaware. So even if they are unaware, we will still beat it 1v1 regardless. But more than likely, they're probably going to be Magic Guard. I have to guess because, again, like spikes, they don't want to get affected by spikes and stuff like that. I don't know. They could be either because Weavile and Garchomp can both set up Swords Dances, so they could bring Unaware perhaps. But I think either one, it doesn't really matter. I still think Necrozma takes it down with these, in my opinion. So I think that's the one set though. Like that's for sure is pretty good here. Garchomp. So because we're not Z on this guy, we can run Z. It's also okay to not run, you know, a Z move. Like if you think like a Scarf Endgame Chomp could be good because again they only have one ground resist, which is Torn or whatever. But if you do think Z is good, then Z is obviously the bring here. Because Garchomp is still pretty good. Like it outspeeds everything but 2 Pokemon, so you could just carry Z to kind of nuke something. You can nuke the Clefable with Earthquake, or you could just run like Z Outrage to like not miss versus Torn or something like that, you know. So I do think we also want Rocks here for sure with how weak their team is to Rocks. So we kind of have to decide which of these two, since Necrozma is not Rocks, do you think is going to be the rocker here?
I feel like Arrow's a pretty good rocker, right? Because you could come in on Torn, immediately force it out. Like I don't think Torn can really do much to the Arrow.
Yeah.
So I feel like it'll be a lot more consistent against that rather than Chomp, right? Because it could always come in. If Chomp's chipped, it can go for like a Z Supersonic Strike or something like that, and potentially knock me out.
Yeah, the Torn, it could run maybe like Z Iron Tail, I think is a play into Arrow. I think it gets
Yeah,
that.
it could do that.
Yeah, so because I mean they're gonna see Torn and they're gonna need Heat Wave too, obviously for Klefki, and then I don't know, they might just run like Icy Wind as their way to kind of because they can catch the Aerodactyl coming in, and they'll have it for Chomp. So I don't know if they'll necessarily run. I think the Z move on Kyurem is like way more likely. But yeah, I think they're just gonna probably run Hurricane, Heat Wave, Icy Wind, and then Filler would make sense to me, I think. So yeah, we could definitely go with a more bulkier arrow too if you want to kind of take a hit or two from maybe Clefable or maybe even Torn. Because again, we can check if we probably don't need max attack to kill these things after rocks or something, right? You know. So
Yeah, I think bulkier is fair.
yeah, so we definitely need Stone Edge though. We can run Aerial Ace to, I think it kills Lopunny after like rocks or something. And then our last move could either be like Fire Fang, it could be Taunt, it could be Roost, it could be Earthquake maybe. Like what are you thinking here?
I kind of like Taunt here, just to kind of shut down the Clefable, right? If Trizen comes in on this.
Yeah. Okay, we could run Taunt, yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean they could bring in like Pharaoh, for example. We don't have Fire Fang, but I mean if we Aerial Ace, it'll still do a decent chunk, but again, we're not really worried about Ferrothorn because we'll have Klefki can come in on Ferrothorn, Necrozma can come in on Ferrothorn. And as long as they don't like Toxic or something on the Necrozma switch, like we're gonna be good. Even if they paralyze us, I think we're still faster than Pharaoh.
If they're Gyro Ball, then yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, they only have 40. So even if they're max, yeah, we'll still be faster. So yeah, that's good. So we can even come in. It would suck if we get fully paired, but it's still like kind of set up fire. So if we don't get that lead matchup that we want, we could kind of save Necrozma too later and just kind of use it as our switch into Pharaoh. So, and then so these are gonna be, we'll do EVs later. Okay, so I think Weavile is probably a pretty easy Pokemon to set up here too, or to like fill out the moves. So we're gonna want pretty much almost, well, here's the thing, like we could run almost max speed to outspeed Torn, but we could also just carry Ice Shard and then we could afford to go Adamant. So let's see, let me see how much Weavile Adamant does. That's Life Orb, sure. That's Battle Spot, cool. Torn, let's just say they're max HP. Okay, so yeah, Ice Shard does a lot for Life Orb. That's jolly to be Adamant. So what do you think? Do you think we should? Well, what moves do you think we need for sure here? Actually, let's do that first.
Uh, okay, so probably need knock, right, for like Volcanion.
Mm-hmm. Knock sounds good.
And I feel like Sword Dance seems really good here, but I don't know if there's going to be like a good opportunity to set it up.
Yeah. It'd be hard. Like the only thing that we would have to set up probably on Torn, expecting them to kind of switch. Because everything
Yeah.
else can just kind of kill us. So I don't know if Swords Dance is the play here. It might just be better to have like coverage moves. This thing also gets could run a taunt too. I definitely think we need low kick for
Yeah, hits Kyurem and the Pharaoh
Ferrothorn.
as well.
Yep. So knock low kick. We definitely need ice move. I think if we go Icicle Crash, then we don't run Shard. Or if we go Ice Shard, then we could do either Taunt or like an Iron Tail maybe, or Poison Jab to hit Clefable a bit harder. Is it Iron Tail? Wait, no it doesn't, right? I thought I got a
Hmm,
Steel move, did it not?
I don't. Gets Metal Claw, I know. Oh, it does get Iron Tail.
Yeah. Let me see how much it does, I'm curious. I know it's a low accuracy move though, so those kind of scare me, but... It's actually a good chunk. Yeah, so knock into Iron Tail could kill if it's just like a little chipped. So we definitely need an ice move. Do you want to run Crash or Shard?
I think I think Crash might be a bit more consistent with Jolly, right? Just so
Yeah,
you can have
so
another thing that can immediately threaten Torn.
right. So we'd have to be something like that for now. Just doing these quick. Um, so then this last move it could be Iron Tail. Could be Poison Jab too if you don't want to miss. It'll do less, but it could still hit this pretty hard. I really don't think we need prior like Shard here. I don't think.
No.
Yeah. So it's either SD, it's either Taunt, it's either Iron Tail, Poison Jab. Power Up Punch? I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's one of those. You could.
I think I like.
Yeah.
Oh, you could go on.
No, you go. That's all I was thinking.
Okay. Thinking maybe Iron Tail, right? Because like Poison Jab does hit Clef harder, but at the same time, Icicle Crash probably does similar damage to where it may not be worth it over other options.
Yeah, so if we're. Yeah, that makes sense. So if we're Jolly, do you want to run Life Orb or do you want to run something else here?
I think Life Orb's fine.
Okay, so if we're Jolly Life Orb. So the middle of this is like 40, the middle of this is like 60, 64. So if we just get two mid rolls, Crash into Iron Tail should kill Clefable. Let me check low kick versus like a Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn. So that's just Spadef. If it's Spadef, it's literally the same thing. Crash into low kick should kill Ferrothorn. With leftovers though, it might not, and if it's more defensive, it might not too. But I mean, that's fine, because if we get, we're probably going to run spikes on here, Klefki. So, with just one spike up, that's probably pretty good. So, we have good offense here. Like, Arrow, Weavile, and Necrozma, we haven't even done Garchomp yet. It's pretty good. So, I think we're going to have to build Klefki to kind of support our offense with either, does that mean spikes or screens? I don't think screens is really the play here because our Necrozma can set up regardless on the things we want without the screen. And then we don't have setup. We just have a bunch of like, like breakers kind of. Garchomp might be set up with SC if you want, or it's probably just going to be, Z move with some attacks, but I'm not too sure. Do you think, I'm trying to think. So we want rocks on Arrow, right? So what are we gonna send an Arrow on? Do you think we're gonna send it on the Torn?
Yeah, Torn and like maybe Clef, depending on like if it's like low health or something.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, like if it goes for like soft belt or whatever, then you could get some opportunity to taunt or get rocks up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we definitely want to be faster than low punny, right? There's no question. I don't know how this player is, so I don't know if they're gonna just do max max on everything or whatever. Have you heard of this guy or no?
Nope.
No. Okay. Has he played yet? Do you know?
I can check.
Yeah. See if he's played yet. Because that's also another thing too. You can kind of look at some replays and maybe catch some bad habits they do or just some misplays they made. Let's see. Let's go to Migrant Hero.
Yeah, I don't think he's played yet.
Okay. All right. So we definitely want to be able to kill. I don't think the Torn's going to be max max, but we definitely want to be able to kill Torn after rocks with Stone Edge. So let's just lower our attack EVs. We could probably go with 0. Let me see. No. Okay, we're gonna probably change this, but 84 would be for Torn. Now we gotta check Kirin Black though. So Kirin Black, what EVs are we thinking they're gonna run? They're probably gonna run. Do they need speed?
They run speed, it'd probably just be enough for like Necrozma.
Yeah. Okay, so we can kind of check how much bulk. They could probably, well, they might actually just go like a plus attack nature then because Necrozma hits what, like 282 or something like that. So they would probably,
Yeah, it's around there.
yeah, so they would probably actually not have too much bulk if they want to go a plus attack nature. So let's just say they have like 32 or something like that. So actually, even with this investment too, Stone Edge actually kills after rocks. So yeah, check Mega Low Punny though with Aerial Ace. We're probably not gonna kill it with that investment. Just a lot. They're not gonna have too much bulk either because they want to creep Weavile. Like 70-ish. Let's say they go 70 and HP or something. So we could run a little bit more to make sure like we kill it after spike maybe is a good thing. So it'd be like at
Yeah, I
80.
think that's fine.
Yeah. Holy, why did that take so much? 120, 144. Huh. That's a good chunk, but that's still safe, I think. 144, and then everything else. I mean, Canyon probably dies after rocks, right? Yeah. Close. Okay, I don't think it's worth going that much. So I think this is fine for attack. 144. And then we have 228 left. So if we're sending it in versus probably Torn and Clefable, we want more Spadef, right?
Yep.
Even Kiram is probably gonna hit it with the ice move, with the ice beam, perhaps. We're not living, Z-free ice shock anyway. So I think we want more Spadef than Fizdef here. So we can check like Torn. What about Torn like Icy Wind or something? Icy. So even with no bulk, it doesn't two-shot us. What about like a
Probably
Clefable?
live after rocks, right?
Yeah, actually, that's good. Good call out. I see. So with rocks up. So let's see. We would be at what, 75? So like this. This would guarantee, I think we live 2. Actually, no. 37.5 is 75. This would guarantee we live 2. 168. So that's good. And then we can also check Kiram's Ice Beam. So we could do a little bit more after rocks. I mean, we could just throw the mat. Honestly, we could just probably put the rest in 228. Is that how much we have left? Oh yeah, it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, we could just do that then. I think that's fine. Because we're not, again, physical attacks is just literally Z Ice. We're not living that. Low Punny, we're going to outspeed. And Ferrothorn, Gyro Ball is just going to nuke us anyway. So, yeah, I don't think we actually need HP or defense in this matchup. This is a good spread, I think.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, so which mon do you think we should do next? We got 3 left.
Uh, Probably the Klefki, right? Because it's going to be pretty important against their like Torn, Kiram,
Yeah, so this is our
kind of stuff.
defensive mons kind of now. Yeah, okay. So Klefki item, what are we thinking? Let's see. Well, let's do moves first. So we definitely want Thunder Wave, we said, right? Because it's just a free click versus their team. Do we want spikes here? Spikes hits.
Yeah, I think Spikes is pretty good.
Yeah, spikes hits everything besides Torn and Magic Guard. So, and that's key information too. Just knowing right away if it's Magic Guard or unaware. So we probably want at least one attack here though. We could run a fairy move and then hidden power fire as well as the last 2 slots. We could do a screen.
I think that sounds.
That's what you want to do?
I think Dazzling Gleam for sure, right? Just so that we're able to actually hit the Kiram and Lopunny, so that they can't just,
Yeah.
kill us off.
Let's see. Let's make sure it breaks up from Kiram. That's probably the main thing. Okay, we definitely do anyway. Yeah. Okay, so that's fine, even if it's max by def. Okay. And then Little Pony will obviously break. So D-Gleam, Hidden Power, Fire is good. The only thing is we're walled by Volcanion, which Klefki can't really do much anyway to Volcanion, so it's not really a big deal. And then versus things like Clefable or whatever, we can kind of just maybe Thunder Wave it and then go out to Necrozma or whatever. Item here, I think either Super Berry is good or a Resist Berry is good. I think those are really the only 2 options. I don't think Leftovers really makes sense. Could be Helmet, maybe. If you want to send this in versus Lop, but I think Jellicent might be actually better to send in versus Lopunny.
I think Shuka Berry is pretty good here, right? Just so if they're like, actually, would they be Earth Power and Kiram?
They kind of need it for Klefki unless they run like Hidden Power.
Yeah.
But Earth Power is just stronger, so I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't.
Okay, I think Shuka Berry is probably fine then.
That's good. And do you think more Spadef or defensive on this build?
Definitely more Fizz stuff, right? Just so that you can tank Lopunny better, Kiram as well, like Fusion Bolt and Z Freeze Shock.
Yeah. Okay, it sounds good to me, sir. So let's look at some calcs. So let's check. Let's check Lopunny first. Lopunny versus Klefki. So high jump kick actually doesn't even do that much with no defensive. Is there something? Oh, is there something wrong with this, or is this just? Oh, this is.
It's not Mega.
Yeah. I was like, what the heck? Okay, yeah. So, maybe like living frustration into HJK could be useful, because right now it definitely does not. So let's see. The thing with Klefki though is it's such a low base HP, so you typically want this to be maxed. So you're kind of gonna probably want to split the defenses between the actual defensive stats. So we'll make this bold. And then let's see. So let's assume we take. Do they have? Let's assume we're gonna take a spike too, because that's like worst case scenario. So we want to at 88%. We want to take a frustration into high jump kick. So let's keep going. So we're gonna be at 88. So this would still not be really in our favor. Okay, so 24 into 64, that's like 88. So, well, 64 is a higher roll actually. So this is probably a pretty good chance to live frustration into high jump kick. But if we want to guarantee live it, then we might have to honestly just go max after a spike. If we're assuming no spike, then we guarantee live it already. What do you think? Do you think they're gonna get a spike here? Because we're not gonna have removal. It looks like.
Yeah, I think they'll run spikes on Pharaoh.
Okay. So yeah, we might need almost max pretty much then.
Because Clef is probably going to be rocks. I'm assuming here, at least, like, Combine doesn't really make too much sense to me.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, I think it'll just be rocks like T-Wave kind of support. So this right
Yeah, and
here.
in that case, they'd run spikes.
Yeah. So, but that's again, that's not necessarily a bad thing because if we can get Necro in on a spike or something like, and we get that free sub, like we're taking at least one Pokemon, and then we could do it again later if they don't choose to sack off Ferrothorn. So we're gonna pretty much need almost max to kind of tank a frustration into high jump kick after spike all the time. So it's not necessarily a bad thing because again, the special hits. Like from Volcanion and stuff, like it's gonna do a shitload to us anyway. Only thing is like some Spadef would be nice for things like Torn, but we do have that arrow anyway that we're kind of dedicating to Torn, and we're not really bringing Emolga, so I think it's okay if we're like pretty much almost max defensive here. We are gonna, that means we're probably gonna take a good amount from the Kyurem, but we are Shukaberry, so. And remember, always, unless like you've paralyzed like a couple things already, whenever you bring in Klefki versus Kyurem on like a Fusion Bolt or Z move or whatever, always click Thunderwave first. It can be Lumberry for sure, but you don't want to just Thunderwave it and then, or not Thunderwave and like let's say you Dazzling Gleam and he's like some random weakness policy set, or they just hard swap into like the switch, which is like Volcanion, and you kind of don't get anything out of the turn. Like Thunderwave always gains you something, So always try to click that for, or we have spikes, right? Or spikes. Spikes is always okay too if you think they're gonna switch. But against a
Yeah,
team
that's
that
fair.
has no like Thunderwave immunity, like it's pretty fair. And if they go into that low pony that's not mega for Limber, like that's fine. Like you're in a good matchup anyway versus low pony. So it's whatever, 252, 236. We didn't check for speed, but I mean, you usually don't ever run speed on Klefki because you're
I don't
pretty.
think there's a reason to.
Yeah, like you're gonna be slower than the things you're dazzling gleaming, and you're faster than the steals anyway. So we could just put that there, and then just go boulder. So this is pretty good. Jellicent is gonna be next. So Jellicent, I don't even think you really need to invest into anything to kind of beat the Volcanion. You kind of just counter that guy, right? Like,
Yeah, you could just run like Nightshade or
yeah,
Toxic or something.
yeah. It can like maybe be sub-toxic or something to try and beat you, but sub-toxic is, I don't know, it's a little weird. It can be, honestly, you never know. But like you said, if you have Nightshade, like you can just always break the sub rate. Like Volcanion doesn't have. Yeah, you can always break this up with a Nightshade. That's a good ring, yeah. What other things? You could be like kind of a little bit speedy here to be fast taunt for that Clefable too, because you're speed tied. Or you can even be even faster to taunt the Volcanion. Like the Volcanion might not run too much speed here. Maybe it'll like creep Necrozma, like min speed Necrozma. So a good idea from Jellicent could be to creep that with taunt, because then you literally shut down like 2 Pokemon. So
Yeah, I think that makes sense. To
yeah.
be like Nightshade, Toxic, Recover, Taunt.
They do have a normal type in Lopunny, but I think that's okay. Because what I think the item should be, I think it should be Rocky Helmet. I think. Let me double check actually. I do think having like one Rocky Helmet Pokemon could be good, and you can make this more like physically defensive too, because remember that calc, it'll put Lopunny in that Aerial Ace range, so you always have a way to kill it, the Jellicent, once it takes one round of Rocky Helmet, unless you think there's a better
Yeah,
item.
Helmet.
It could be a
No,
better
I,
item.
I think Helmet's fine. Because, like, I feel like leftovers aren't really needed here, right? You already kind of beat Volcanion.
Yeah.
And the only other item I could think of is like Wakanberry for like Kyurem Fusion Bolt, but
Hmm.
that you're not gonna switch it into Kyurem,
Yeah.
and it's not gonna. We have enough counterplay to Kyurem. I feel like Weavile, Arrow, Garchomp, all revenge kill.
Yeah.
Klefki could like switch in if we need to.
Right. So I'm looking at. He would go to 196, so we're gonna go to 197 if he's creeping this. So we're gonna have a good amount of speed here. Hello. Yeah, so we're gonna be pretty speedy. That's okay though. Because if we can just taunt those guys, like we just get, because after we taunt Volcanion, like we can just click. I mean, Nightshade or Toxic is completely free. Probably Nightshade might be a bit better at first, just to see what they're switching. It's probably gonna be Ferrothorn, I guess. So, but then
Yeah, that would make the most sense.
you can literally Nightshade and then you can taunt the Ferrothorn, as they probably, because they could just attack you, which if they do, they'll take Helmet, whatever. But once you taunt them, then you can go Necrozma, and then that's when you get free because they can't do anything to Necrozma with just attacks. Maybe. Oh, I didn't. I didn't check. I didn't check knockoff. Knockoff might do more. Actually, let me check.
From the Pharaoh?
Yeah, to Necrozma. Wait, why is this doing so much? Oh, I'm not the right set. Oops. Never mind. Okay, never mind. Yeah, we're good there if it's knockoff. So yeah, I think Jelly makes sense to be more BizDef here or Spadaf. What do you think?
I'd go Fizdef here, mainly for the log.
Yeah, makes sense. So I don't know if we even need any Spadaf at all. If we don't, then we can just do max defense. We don't need obviously any investment in a special attack. We're just Nightshade anyway. So I think it's fine just to go like max defense like this. I don't think.
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, I don't think we need any sort of special attack or Spadaf. We can kind of check. The only thing is, so both of these guys are mostly Fizdef, so it's just that Torn. But again, we have two things that can just Oko Torn, and we have Arrow too that can take a hit. So I don't think Torn's really a huge problem here. And then our last Pokemon is Garchomp. Garchomp might be the trickiest set that we want here. I don't think we need Scarf. Like looks good because again, there's only one ground resist, but we have the fastest Pokemon in the battle already, so I don't think we need Z. I think or need Scarf. I think Z is probably pretty cool here. I think we should definitely afford to go. Like we can be bulky. We don't have to be like max speed. Like we can like guarantee to outspeed Kyurem, and be almost max speed. But like it's just one of those things where like it's such a tricky thing because it's a matchup where like whoever's faster is literally just gonna kill the other one. So if you get it wrong, like you just lose your Pokemon for no reason. And we don't know how this guy is. We don't know if he's like too good or if he's like newish. So it probably is best to just make sure we always outspeed a non-scarfed Kyurem. But the bulk and chump could be useful here. So if we run Z, do you think Z is like the best item here, or do you think maybe a resist berry is better, or like what do you think?
I'm thinking Z probably, right? Because you get the nuke like Clef or Pharaoh or Torn, right? And even with like Yachi Berry, for example, like if you're full health, Torn doesn't kill. I don't think Lop kills either at full health. So,
Let me check. Ice Punch, Garchomp.
oh, okay, never mind.
It might, yeah.
Well, it depends on our bulk.
Yeah, we're probably not gonna have enough bulk to live after like a spike though too or anything. Definitely not. But
Yeah.
yeah, I still think Z-move is good. Just like which Z-move do you think though? Because Z ground is obviously great for anything that's not torn, but you could do Z Dragon or Z Rock or whatever. Z Rock might not be bad either. It's just to make sure you don't miss versus Big Torn. You could do Z Dragon.
Yeah, either
like there's a bunch.
I think rock and ground are probably the best options here.
Rock and ground.
Yeah, just because dragon it is nice, but I feel like just the nuke on Clef is really useful here
Hmm. Yeah.
because that really opens up like Weavile, for example.
Yep. I agree. So, so you're thinking Z ground? Yeah, I think Z ground is good. It's just, it would suck so much if you miss your attack on Torn, but like I said, we have
Yeah,
we
that's
have
the
pretty
only
good
thing I'm worried about.
we have pretty good play into Torn, so it's not that. I think ground demon's probably what I would go with as well. So we would run Earthquake. We would run Stone Edge. We could run Outrage instead of Stone Edge, but then like we would have to lock ourselves into it. I mean, we probably might want a Dragon move anyway for Kiro back. Let me see how much Stone Edge does to KB. Not that much actually. That's no bulk too. Yeah, so we actually might need to run a Dragon move anyway. We can run it. If it comes down to it, like we'll click it, but you know, we might not need it. And then we could do like SD, we can do Fire Move, we can do Sub, we can do Endure. The reason why I say Endure is just for the the rough skin. If low punny is gonna like fake us out or just like hit us and it's low, we can get 2 rough skins off. U-turn, we can, well, that doesn't really work for U-turn, but yeah, I don't know. It could just be for low punny or protect maybe to scout as like a Z move from Torn. But there's really no like wrong answer here. Could just be SD, honestly. I don't really know if SD would be the best case. It could be. It could. Cause like if your inverse is like something like Volcanion or something, like they're not gonna stay in here. So could we sub on Ferrothorn maybe as well here? Perhaps. Let me check.
I don't mind sub because you could also sub on the Volcanion, right? And they could either go into like Clef or Torn, depending.
Yeah, we can't sub though on Ferrothorn really for free. Hmm.
What are you thinking here?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know because sub is a sub's a bit hard because like if you sub, the only thing you could really sub on is like for sure I think is Volcanion. Even Volcanion, like if they're just like want to throw away the Volcanion, like they can still break the sub obviously with Steam Eruption. So like it might just end up being a waste. We can't really sub on anything else. Ferrothorn breaks the sub. We would have to get a sub on them expecting them to switch, which is always like risky. So like it might just be better like just to attack, like just attack because Earthquake really is just free into their team. The only thing that stops Earthquake is Torn, but again if we're full, we will just stay in and kill it with Stone Edge. So I don't know if ever like not clicking like a non-attacking move is ever the play here. I feel like we just get too much by just attacking here. You know, I just don't know what the last move would be though. It could just be Dragon Claw maybe. So we don't have
That
to
might not be too bad.
lock
What do
ourselves
the
in.
calcs look like in Takiram?
Yeah, let's see. Uh Dragon Claw. Outreach. Oh god. So, geez, even with rocks up, it doesn't even always kill Dragon Claw. That is
Yeah,
crazy.
they might be bulk invested as well.
Yeah, they definitely will be. They'll probably be at like max HP. So I don't know if Dragon Claw would ever actually help us here. Maybe a fire move for Ferrothorn? Um,
Fire Fang maybe?
yeah,
Or would Fire Blast be better? Actually, no, we can't really drop our defenses.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, it could also just be like, I think maybe like Protect might be good. Protect or endure, just for that low bunny. It's always protect is also not bad. Just to scout too. Like if you're in versus torn, like you earthquake right, and they go torn, you can just protect. If they burn their Z move, they burn their Z move, whatever. And if they just click like U-turn or something, then you're safe. They're not going to click like substitute versus a Garchomp with torn. I don't think.
They can't fit it on their team either. I feel like.
Yeah, so tech might be good for that Garchomp versus torn scenario, just to kind of see what they want to do. And if they burn their Z, then that's good for you as well. You might have to switch after because you'll probably be in range of. Honestly, I don't even know if you will be like a Z Hurricane with protect into like a normal move. Like you probably might even live anyway. Does the calc show it if you protect? Yeah, it does. Yeah, so it only does that much. So into a regular one, you'll actually live. So
Okay, I think protect sounds fine then.
yeah, and then you can also protect versus like fake out or protect maybe if they go for high jump kick, maybe like if they're going crazy. I don't know, but realistically, it's for that torn Garchomp matchup. And for example, too, like if you earthquake as they go Clefable and it only does like if they're max defense, it'll probably do like 35 to 40. I think they could switch and scout for the Z earthquake, but I still think you always pop it because even if they do scout for it, they have to recover or else next time they're still in range of 2 regular earthquakes. So
Yeah.
that's just like one of those like predictions where like don't predict them to kind of scout for you. Just click your best attack anyway, no matter what. So I think we said it's just best to make sure we guarantee outspeed that Kiram.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth risking not outspeeding it.
Yeah. So I'm looking at max attack here. So if they're bulky torn, we still have a pretty good shot to one-shot them after rocks if we're max attack. Let me check versus Fable. Do we need max attack to Oko with regular into Z? 40, 70. No, this definitely Oko's or like 2 shots. So we could run less if we want to risk like torn, like living.
I don't know. I feel like the max attack is okay because it also gives us better rolls into Clef as well, right?
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Max attack.
Or does that just die?
It'll always die. Like earthquake into Z will always kill it.
Okay.
If we're like 0, probably not. No, we would probably need like around 120 to guarantee. Yeah, something like that, or it's a roll in our favor. But max attack is still fine because then we do, the most like Ferrothorn, or we might need max attack to. Yeah, we don't even know Volcanion actually with max attack, and it's gonna have bulk too. So after rocks, it would like just make sure we Oko it, which is good.
Okay, I think we should keep the max attack then.
Okay. I know we haven't really talked about Doublade or Charger Bug, but I mean,
well,
Doublade can come perhaps, like, but the thing is, like, our top 3 Pokemon, it's gonna have like super effective coverage. Arrow could have Earthquake; it wouldn't do a ton, but like I don't know. I feel like just Doublade isn't really too good into us. I mean, its stabs is okay. Like just Ghost looks pretty good, and then Steel Move for Weavile, but just Weavile will do way too much damage to it first. So
yeah,
I just think.
I mean, worst case, we could always just switch and chomp into Doublade.
Yeah.
If we need to.
Yep. That's good play. Yeah. So I think we have a pretty good game plan here. Like again, if we get that whole lead sequence correct, like we'll be in a good spot for our offense to kind of just win the game. Thunder Wave is always a good thing to have to kind of bail you out of something that you might not expect. So like here's where we're talking about, like you said, like they sometimes bring things that you don't like anticipate. So like looking at their like threats, like what do you think is like the best Pokemon for them into our team?
I think Lopunny is probably the best into us, right? Because like high jump kick is kind of free
Yeah.
because well, I mean, technically we can switch into Necrozma. I feel like that's not something we always want to do.
Yeah, because we don't have Moonlight on this set, so
Yeah,
we do have lefties, but yeah, low pointing is pretty hard. We do have, like I said, we do have Helmet. We do have ways to revenge it, but yeah, in terms of like switching and handling, we're probably gonna have to go Klefki. Hopefully they just fake out or normal move first, because the Necrozma might like kind of not want like make them go for a fighting move right off the bat. So if they don't, then Klefki can definitely take a few and then threaten Thunderwave. And then if it's paralyzed, like then it's definitely like we don't gotta worry about it
yeah,
for the
then
rest of
it's
the game.
just.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So the Clef Fable can run Yobel, so that is potential that it could run, but I'm not sure if we'll have it. So, and then Kiram. I think something that might kind of scare you in the game is Kiram. If it's like, let's say you have Necrozman and you're anticipating, like the Z Ice, and then they click like Substitute or something crazy. Our initial switch is like you said, Klefki, but again, Klefki was going to probably be used for low pointing too, so that's kind of the whole thing where like our Klefki might get overwhelmed here, and then once it goes down, like whichever Pokemon is still up could kind of force a kill. But it's all about just like not panicking. Like if it's like a sub roost Kyurem, like I think you're okay, because that's something like we checked, right? It does break the substitute, I think.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so we could always just break it and then again threaten a Thunder Wave, so that's not really a problem. And Jellicent is always there too. I think actually Kyurem has enough HP though to not have its sub broken by yeah, definitely not by Nightshade, because it only does 100 damage. It's 454. So that is a potential scare. Like a sub Kyurem completely walls, takes advantage of our Jellicent here. And there's not really much we can do about it. Like Jellicent doesn't really get anything
No,
that can break a sub with ease. So, but as long as we have our switch, like we can go Klefki. If Klefki is down, that's a bit of a problem if it has a sub and Klefki is down. So realistically, we might want to save Klefki for Kyurem first, just to make sure like we know it's set and it's not like, because if it's a real sub and we don't have Klefki, like we're in trouble. So maybe if Lopunny comes in early, like maybe we just pivot into Jellicent first to kind of see what it wants to do, get a helmet chip off, and then go from there. Especially because we can probably play around it where like we can pivot Jellicent maybe, and then we can maybe go Aerodactyl on a normal move if we think it's gonna go for a normal move, because Frustration might just two-shot our Jellicent because we're not like max defensive. I'm not too sure. We can check, because like they have no reason not to go for Frustration, right? If it just two shots. What was our bulk? 82. So if they do have the hazard
if
up,
Rock's up, then
yeah,
yeah.
if they do have the hazard up, Frustration more than likely will two shot. So that could be a play we do, is kind of pivot Jellicent and then go hard arrow on the normal move. It's a bit risky because they can obviously high jump kick probably kills us, but it's just again saving our one piece for that Kyurem Black, because that's how you kind of run into that trap where you lose a Pokemon and then your team is kind of owned by another Pokemon. So you gotta kind of guard against all possibilities. But realistically, I think our offense is extremely good here, and our offense is probably gonna overwhelm theirs first. It does seem like they might get up their hazards more than us, and we don't have removal, which could be tricky because Spikes does hit everything besides Arrow. But and when Klefki's in, we're more than likely going to be clicking Thunderwave first, not Spikes. And then if we Thunderwave the Volcanion coming in, like we can't Spikes in front of that, we have to switch. So we might have to be playing this game with Spikes up, which could be problematic in Rocks, especially because our thing is Life Orb too. But I still think they just don't have switch ins to a lot of our guys, so I think we'll be okay in that scenario, especially again if we lead in Crosman, because if they want to get up the Spikes, they're going to probably lead Ferrothorn, and we'll take advantage of that. So last thing, and then I think we'll be okay for now. If we lead Necrozma, like what we want to decide, like what are we doing versus all of their potential like Pokemon as leads with this team. So Necrozma versus Torn, what do you think is the click?
Versus Torn.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of what they would do, I feel like it's mostly like most likely U-turn or I don't think they would Z right off the bat like Lee Torn, so
Yeah.
I feel like maybe a sub would be pretty safe.
Okay. Does U-turn break substitute? Well, actually, they would go first anyway. But let's just check torn damage versus Arnacrozma. So let me actually import this in.
Because I do think that if they do lead Torn, U-turn into like a Clef switching is pretty likely.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and U-turn wouldn't even do too much to us anyway because we're literally max defense. The only thing that would suck is if they do end up going for that just Z move right off the bat, because then we can't sub, and they pretty much just
Yeah.
kill our Necrozma for nothing. So sub is a bit tricky. I think, okay, we're probably gonna assume they bring top 6, but we don't know for sure. But I think versus Torn, there's 3 clicks they can do. 1 is U-turn, 2 is Z move, 3 is knockoff. I do think knockoff slash U-turn is probably more likely than Z, but you don't want that scenario to happen where we just lose Necrozma for nothing. So
Yeah.
realistically, I think the best click is probably Arrow. It covers all 3 of those. Like knockoff isn't going to do much to Arrow. Obviously, U-turn isn't going to do much. So, and then we get our rocks up if they stay in. So
Okay.
that's probably the best versus Torn lead. Versus Kieran Black, what are you thinking?
Versus Kurum, I think probably just go into Klefki, right?
Yep.
Scout out what it said is pretty early.
Yep, I
Because
agree.
at that point, if they lead it, we'll know. I'm pretty sure we'll know 100% if they're like sub roost or whatever. Not like 100%, but we'll. It'll be shown if they're, what kind of moveset they have.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Klefki is 1,000,000% the play there, you're right. Low punny. Low punny is interesting because, technically we do have the advantage. So but the thing is, what do you click? Do you just attack? Do you click one of the 2 other buttons? What are you thinking?
I don't actually mind Photon Geyser, right? Because like they could always. Well, in terms of their switch-ins, Clef and Torn are the most likely.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Photon Geyser might not be bad versus both of them, right? Just to get a little bit of chip on them.
Yeah.
Maybe see if they're like more SPDEF or FizzDef invested.
Yep. I think
So
that's,
I'd
yeah.
probably go for that.
Yep. I think that's correct too. You just Photon guys with the low punny. Maybe they just go Ferrothorn for some reason, and then that gives you your thing. But yeah, just scouting, damage on things like Torn and Clef is always useful. And I mean, if they stay in for some reason, we're probably gonna kill them or
Free kill.
close. Yeah. So they might just fake out first, which I don't agree with that play either, because we could just be helmet and they'll take more anyway. But yeah, I think Photon Geyser is just safe. It covers pretty much everything. So let's see. Versus Clefable, what are you clicking?
Probably just sub. Just kind of scout out what they go for. Maybe they go for like T-Wave or something, so that
Yep.
blocks that.
Yep, I think sub is correct. I think they're either roxing or clicking a status move turn 1 or switching for some reason. I don't know. They could, I guess, be like Scarf Trick or something, which would suck because then you sub and then you're stuck into it, but that'd be kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can kind of like scout for that.
No, that's like be an interesting set.
I mean, even if like they do, like we can switch out, then like just Photon Geyser spam isn't terrible. We still wouldn't really be too fast. Yeah, we'd probably be faster than Kiram though, I think still. It'd be close. If they would speed creep like normal, then we would be faster if they go down to like Vino. So it still wouldn't be the end of the world, but yeah, that definitely suck. But yeah, I do think sub is the correct play. Versus Ferrothorn, obviously sub is always the click. We're gonna have to talk about that one. And then Volcanion, what are you thinking? Volcanion.
I'd probably just go Jealous in here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think it's worth it to like risk Necrozma taking like a Specs, Hydro Steam, or even like a Toxic, right? I
Yep.
feel like it is pretty good into like a Pharaoh, for example, and Lop. So
Yeah.
I think I just go Jealous in here.
Yeah, if they click Toxic just right away, which they could versus Necrozma, because it could be annoying, and when we get Toxic, it sucks, but it's not the end of the world. I think you still just stick to your like Nightshade. If they're like Toxic Protect, oh, that's annoying. But I just think you still either stick to your Nightshade because they're probably going to go Ferrothorn after. You don't want to just Toxic and then get nothing out of it, you know? There's no way
Yeah.
they go low punny on Jellicent on a Nightshade. Like, there's just not a play. So, let's see. Necrozma versus Doublade would be interesting. What do you think?
Maybe Chomp. How much does it do to Chomp with like Shadow Claw or Sacred Sword? Oh, that's actually a lot with Gyro Ball.
Gyro Ball, yeah. I honestly think you'd be okay to just Heat Wave
Heat
because,
Wave?
yeah, I mean, look how much max attack doesn't do too much or max defense. So
Okay, yeah.
I think Heat Wave is
That's
okay.
yeah. I think I was just overestimating the damage it would deal to Necrozma because it's super effective.
Yeah, but we got that big Prism Armor. We're defensive, so and then
Yep.
Charger Bug, dude. What the? Like, I mean,
What does it even get?
I don't know. I think you probably would just sub on it, right? Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could Toxic or Thunder Wave. So yeah, probably sub.
it can run Crunch, dude. Oh wait, it's a physical attacker. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I guess it can X Scissor, like to do damage to Necrozma. Let's check max attack X Scissor, baby. Yeah, it's not much. So, yeah, I mean, versus Charger Bug, I'd probably just click sub anyway, because more than likely they're probably gonna click either like Volt Switch or Toxic or something. I don't know. Realistically,
Yeah.
this thing is not coming. So, but you never know. Like I said, you never know. So, I think it's a pretty good team. I think this is pretty winnable. Again, you said you play in like a week, right? So
Yeah,
at,
next Saturday.
at 10 a.m. Oh my god, that's 7 for me. I probably won't be up, but I think this is a pretty easy build to pilot and kind of win with. You know, kind of the matchup and what Pokemon to kind of send in like when and where, and then kind of win with your Garchomp or your. Probably, honestly, I think the last Pokemon standing is probably going to be Weavile, just because it can do a lot of damage to everything, and it's like faster and everything besides like Lopunny. And again, Lopunny is taking Helmet every time you switch, or it's gonna probably be paralyzed. And especially if it's paralyzed, then yeah, I think Weavile just is gonna kill everything. So there are some things where
Yeah.
like if you have Weavile in versus like Torn, and you click Icicle Crash, and they bring in Clefable, right? There's a time like when you think you should just go for the Iron Tail. Again, it's in your favor to hit and just kill it. But also, like, if you gotta think about like if you miss and then you just lose Weavile, like, can you still win if that happens? Type things, you know. It really just depends on what's alive and everything. Because like maybe you could just pivot into like Jellicent or something and then just taunt it so then it dies to 2 Icicle Crashes after, or like whatever. But I get that, like, seeing like, oh, you have a KO right in front of you, just click the move and kill it, like wanting to do it. It's just you gotta be careful about the whole like risk versus reward thing and how the game is going, you know.
Yeah, I think it kind of just depends on how much of an advantage I have, right? Like
Yep.
if Weavile goes down and I could still win the game pretty comfortably, then I feel like it might be worth it. But
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I get that. Yeah. Last move that I still think we might want to talk about maybe is the Hidden Power Fire, just because yeah, it's gonna do a lot of damage to Ferrothorn, but well, nah, actually, yeah. Clicking Hidden Power Fire in front of Ferrothorn is huge because I was gonna say we kind of use Ferrothorn to abuse with Necrozma, but Ferrothorn is kind of annoying for Jellicent and even like Weavile. Like low kick does like a little bit over half, but then we could take possibly Helmet and Rough Skin or Iron Barbs, whatever. And then if it's not in range, we'll die. So I think Hidden Power Fire's fine. It's just coming down to we don't want to get like worn down if Karen back is still like at full health, you know, just keeping Klefki healthy.
yeah,
But yeah, Hidden Power Fire could be good for Ferrothorn because even like killing Ferrothorn is good for Garchomp. That's one of the few things that can like eat a Earthquake, you know, decently well. So, but I think that's everything. Do you have any more like questions or anything, or not really? I know it's kind of long.
no,
Sorry about that.
don't worry, don't worry. No, I'm good. You went over everything very clearly.
Okay, good. So, like I said, we do want to talk about like drafting and battling are like the two other major things, but I'm not too sure when that'll be. It'll probably be sometime next weekend, and then we'll kind of decide what we want to do. Then I'll talk to you obviously in like DMs and stuff. So we'll just go from there and see what's up, pretty much.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Sounds good.
Yes, sir.